Welcome back to the Present Company Included podcast. As always, I am TeddyGrizz, joined by Gleeman and Rhino Rocks.
Hello.
Hello.
And today we are going over a video titled "When is it ethical to believe without evidence?" Rhino, I believe you're the one that brought this to us. Yeah, want to tell us what you know about it?
Yes, I did. This is a video by Olivia Sun. She does the whole video essay kind of thing, and I believe she is also a psychology and philosophy student. So this is kind of in her wheelhouse. And she is going to speak on whether it's ethical to believe in things without evidence from both a religious and scientific standpoint. And she's just kind of go over some use cases and see where general opinions fall on different practices.
Now, does she specify in the video the differences between facts, evidence, proof, all that?
To an extent, she's more going to focus on the philosophical names, like I think one is evidentialism and things like that. So she's going to focus more on like the specific kinds of belief and the organizational structures around it. Now, I didn't pre-watch. I never pre-watch if I can help it. So I've only checked out probably about the first 15 minutes or so of this. But generally, that's the impression that I'm getting from there.
Okay. I was just wondering if she laid out her terms before going into the philosophy itself. That way, we have clarity.
She's pretty good. I've seen a bunch of her other content. She's usually pretty good at explaining herself. Maybe not to the point of perfection, but she can usually give you a pretty good understanding of where she's coming from leading up to a point she's about to make. And she does
Oh,
cite sources and give, even if anecdotal, she'll give some evidence to support what she's saying to at least steer it in the right direction.
okay.
So before we jump into the video, I'd be interested to know where each of you stand on the question that the title poses of if it is ethical to uh, believe without
Believe without.
evidence, or when is it ethical to believe without evidence is actually the question posed.
Well, I think that even the scientific method, to an extent, is based on the idea of believing something without evidence up until the point you get evidence. So, I mean, even the idea of having a theory, like we wouldn't have vaccines if someone went, hey, all these milkmaids, and they're hanging around cows, they don't get this particular disease. Why is it that they don't? And now we have a cure for, I want to say it's botulism. I can't remember the specific disease, but I know that's the story behind where it came from. It's just you see a thing, you make connections. You don't have to have supreme evidence, even if it's anecdotal evidence. You can just make general broad connections and then slowly explore it out from there until you find concrete proof.
And to be crystal clear, what Rhino was talking about is not necessarily scientific theory, but a hypothesis.
Yes, words are hard.
Which is often a step in doing science. You start out with a hypothesis and you test against it.
That's true, but it's very hard to come to an actual theory because a theory has to not only be uh, gosh, it's late, so forgive me. But a theory not only has to have uh, been tested, there we go, not only been tested and observed and come to a conclusion, but that has to be repeated by the scientists themselves, and then um, that testing has to be done by several of their peers as well and come to the same conclusions um, before. and there has to be a consensus on those conclusions following multiple rounds of testing before it becomes a theory.
That's using the term very, very, to be clear, that's very formal definition. I think when I, as a
Gee, I
rechargeable individual,
wonder
say
why would
a
I
theory,
bring up the formal definition?
no, but when I say a theory, I'm speaking a concept or an idea, something that you're, because I mean everything's a theory until it's
Are
proven to be.
you are you
Well,
stating it more in the terms of a hypothesis then?
Yes.
well, because you were speaking specifically in scientific terms, I wanted to go with the scientific word for theory or
Understandable.
the definition of theory. Whereas
Triggered
if
my
we
own
were
trap card.
talking, if we were talking purely philosophically, then of course a theory is merely a hypothesis,
The common usage of theory would be a better way to put it.
which would be based in philosophy.
Yeah.
Okay.
If your belief, so when it comes to scientifically, if your belief in something is only on the basis of hypothesis but not theory yet, as in it hasn't been, you haven't, you don't have the evidence, you haven't tested it, you haven't peer reviewed it, whatever. I don't think that there's anything ethically wrong with believing something. Like I don't think there's anything ethically wrong with believing that this is the way that it'll go, or that this is the way it works. Um,
Well,
even if you
it
haven't
actually
tested it yet.
well actually that goes into the very basis of the word. Hypothesis, the thesis is that belief. You're simply putting forward this belief for testing, whether it turns out good or wrong, or good or bad, or in this case, right or wrong. Um, you do have that belief that um, that thought process doesn't come out of nowhere, and you're not testing because you don't have any sort of belief of what's going to happen. uh, the You're putting forward a thesis statement that is your belief of
Right.
whatever is going to happen, and then you uh, put it to the test to see if it's right or wrong. Now, a good scientist will take the results as they come, and you're a bad scientist, or a very poor scientist in this case, if you hold to the belief after it's being proven wrong. um, but that is still a belief in of itself. The hypothesis is a belief. It's just what would the word be? Tenuous in nature, uh, because it's not been tested yet.
So, how would you circle that square with something like theological belief, like a religious belief that comes from a handed down story? Even if there are, witnesses, because like the resurrection of Christ, we do have papers written from the apostles afterwards that say this person claimed this person claimed that are eyewitness accounts, but we don't have any physical proof. So how would you square the term belief as a scientific thing with something like that, where you're believing with very limited evidence?
Well, how do we believe that? Let's say, let's go outside of the Bible. That
I
Alexander
wasn't
the
trying to
Great.
target that specifically. It was just an
Oh, well,
easy example.
uh, that's where I would go to other historical, what we would consider facts, but are essentially just evidence-based historical figures, which would be like Alexander the Great. He has actually less um, historical documentation than Jesus Christ does.
I can believe that.
So we believe that Alexander the Great lived, and his accomplishments because of the witness accounts and the historians who later documented um, those accounts. In such a case, we do the same for any historical figure, biblical or non-biblical.
Okay.
And in the case of, let's say, the Bible, we know that Jerusalem existed because it still exists. We know that Nazareth existed because it still exists. Same with Bethlehem. A lot of the cities from ancient times actually still remain, and a lot of the cities that were lost have been found again through archaeology. These are this isn't proof that the stories themselves are factual, but it is evidence that they were rooted in truth to some degree. And that's
Did that?
why I oh apologies.
I was just gonna ask. Does that answer your question thoroughly?
Yes.
Perfect.
Where do you stand
Yeah.
on it, Ted?
On which one? Sorry.
On specifically, do you think it's with ethical, we'll say morally ethical, to believe in something without evidence yourself?
I think I probably stand pretty similar to Gleeman there, where I don't think that there's anything wrong with I don't think there's anything ethically or morally wrong with having a belief in something without having the evidence of it, as long as you can recognize that you don't have the evidence of it, and if proof is shown to the contrary, you're willing to adjust your beliefs. You know, you if you're willing to
Uh,
take your own beliefs with a grain of salt.
so it if that is what was taken from what I said, then I would like to make myself clear.
That was with reference to you to when you were speaking about the scientific belief, where you were saying you're a poor scientist if you still cling to a belief even after proof has been shown to show otherwise.
Well, and what I meant was to make myself abundantly clear on evidence-based faith. Um, the faith isn't without evidence. It's without proof. It's without factual proof of its existence. But there is evidence still,
Yes.
as I was pointing out,
Right.
that the places in the Bible do still exist. They are not made up. We also have numerous accounts of Christ, both in the Bible itself and outside of the Bible, that Christ existed. Um, all of these things are evidence of um, the truth or of a reality uh, that we can place our place confidence in. Is
They are
it
just not wholly proving.
right? But it is evidence, and that's why I wanted to specify between uh, the definitions of evidence and proof or facts.
The gun was in the guy's car. We know he was in the area. We have evidence versus we have an actual proven videotape of the person pulling the trigger and shooting someone.
Right.
Yeah.
We don't have the proof, but there's lots of evidence pointing to it.
Exactly.
Alrighty, you ready to let Miss Olivia tell us about it?
Let's get
Sure.
into it.
That is, what particular beliefs we should hold. Believe us when we say raw milk is good for you and will cure all ailments. No, believe us when we say that raw milk could poison and even kill you. Believe us when we say that universal childcare is better than low-income childcare benefits. No, adopt our belief that we should send $10 billion more to Israel. But before we ask what to believe, some philosophers ask when should
Love it. Okay, the raw milk is actually a very good example for her to give because it is something that is banal in like every manner. Like no one actually cares on a very deep level, but it shows how entrenched people will get.
Right. And just how much propaganda there
Yeah.
is on even the most, as you put it, banal subjects.
Yeah.
I don't
Which,
drink
for
raw
the
milk
record,
myself, but
I am
when
a
I
raw milk
see,
enjoyer.
okay, well, I don't drink it myself, but when I see lots of people who I have known to be some of the most dishonest and manipulative people out there swearing that it's terrible for you to drink raw milk, that really makes me think, what are they
Yeah.
trying to hide? What is in raw milk? They're I don't believe you. I didn't care about raw milk, but the fact that you're saying don't drink it makes me want to.
Which is very interesting on how we trust sources.
Disclaimer: use good judgment if you drink raw milk. Make sure it's properly sieved and stored, all the good stuff. Do whatever the government entity three-letter people tell you.
Don't trust the
No,
government. Do not trust the
I don't,
government.
but
this disclaimer:
disclaimers just
none of us are dietitians or experts in the food industry, so do not take
No,
any advice from us.
but I'm an expert
do
at
take my
getting
advice that
screwed
it
over
tastes
by the
better.
government. Don't trust them.
It does taste better.
We believe? Or more precisely, when is it ethical to believe something? This is a more fundamental question about how we should interpret the world, and one I find quite interesting. Most people spend time trying to cultivate accurate beliefs because we make our lives meaningful by acting in the world, and so we don't want to act upon false beliefs. We want to be sure that the meaning we create aligns with what we intended. This relies on the assumption that it is right or ethical to believe only true things. But what actually makes truth ethical? Is it because truth is intrinsically good, or because truth is instrumental to good consequences? Moreover, what does an ethical belief look like? Due to the
Hmm. Let me
Okay,
back up there.
so she said that truth is basically
this relies on
paramount.
the assumption that it is right or
Okay, play.
ethical to believe only true things. But what actually makes truth ethical? Is it because truth is intrinsically good, or because truth is instrumental to good consequences?
It's intrinsically good, or is it?
So I'm going to disagree with her on both of these counts because what is good varies from person to person. I think all three of us here could come up with things that if we took enough time, one person thinks is good and another person thinks is bad. Raw milk being a perfect example, right? We just had that whole disagreement about whether it's good or not. But also that,
I didn't say raw milk was bad. I said that I'm tempted to try it because terrible people tell me not to drink it.
but also that good and truth leads to good consequences. That's not always intrinsically true, like by its nature. If you rob a bank and get away, you had good consequences from doing a bad moral thing, even though I think we would all agree that it is true that it is bad to rob banks. So the consequences are somewhat disconnected to the goodness of something as a whole.
Okay, I need to write down her the way she phrased this because I might get lost, and I don't want to get lost on how she phrased this.
Ethical? Is it because
Okay, so is it because see, this is why I should pre-watch these things. Just saying.
Well, it gets already.
truth is
Gets me thinking
intrinsically
about
good, or
the belief that some people have that porcupines can throw their quills.
Yeah.
Porcupines cannot throw their quills. But if you believe that porcupines can throw their quills, you'll stay the heck away from porcupines. You'll give them extra distance so you don't get skewered by their quills.
Maybe not the ones you met.
So,
Because truth
so
is
in that instance,
instrumental to believe.
it's not true that porcupines can throw their quills, but there is you could say that there's a good outcome that comes from believing something that is untrue. Now, I personally believe that truth does lead to better consequences. I think truth leads to good consequences in the grand scheme. Now,
Yeah.
you gave an
As a
example
whole,
of a singular person that might do something that's bad and
yes.
get something
I'm
good
just
out of
saying
it.
that on its face, it's not intrinsically true in every case. That is the one flaw that I see is she's speaking in an absolute, which I'm not blaming her. She's just kind of
No, she's simply asking a question, although she did create, I guess it could be a false dichotomy, in that it can only be one or another. Because the question is, why should we believe in truth? Is it because truth is intrinsically good, or because truth is instrumental to good consequences?
I don't think
And
either of those things necessarily hold as true. Um,
And I think both of them are true.
I think both of them are true as well.
Worldviews collide.
Well, and this goes into our conversation we had, like, oh gosh, a month ago, maybe.
Yeah.
But we talked about what is truth. And in your worldview, Rhino, you believe that truth is subjective, whereas I believe in objective truth, and that truth is, what's the word that I used? Uh,
I think we used the term absolute was a was
yes,
phrased that
it was, what was the word, other than, it's not that it's immovable,
immutable.
it's immutable. There we go.
We're killing it today.
Truth is immutable in that, we cannot change it.
Yeah.
Um,
Whereas,
uh,
so
Go ahead.
people watching know, my opinion is that truth itself is subjective and it changes as time goes on. So as more things come out and things change, something that is true now may not be true tomorrow. But that is just really nitpicky philosophical differences. Generally, me and Gleeman, if we talk about something being true, if we both someone asks us if is the sky blue, we're both going to agree that that's true.
And for me, the use of me saying that's true comes with its own caveat, that it is true according to my knowledge.
Yes.
Now, if it comes out tomorrow that the sky isn't actually blue, and I've been believing this
You've been lied
incorrectly,
to from the start.
I've been lied to,
You might
uh,
have been.
then the truth never changed. The truth is the sky is whatever it is. Um, that has
Where
never
in my
changed. My
worldview, the truth
understanding,
has changed
uh,
because, in my personal view, the truth is whatever is correct in that moment is correct at the time, and if the time changes, then that is the new truth. I think the
All right.
debate that we've had
Since
specifically was can some things be more true than can two things be true but disagree with each other? Like, are some things more true than others? Was the nature of that debate we were having.
right.
yes.
Uh, and I believe that something can be closer to the truth, one truth, than another, but both still in the orbit of the truth.
Mr. Theodore.
So, when it comes to, I just have to get into some nerdy science facts.
Yeah.
The sky is blue, as in we. What do you mean? I'm curious what you mean when you say the sky is blue? Do you mean we perceive it as blue?
Yeah, I mean,
Do you
if
mean
we were going to go very sciencey of it, the sky is air particles and it's light reflections off the eyes, and then the science stuff happens, light's a spectrum, but the in the
because
base
due to
context,
a
we see it as blue.
yes, we see it as blue, but that's partially due to a quirk of our eyes. Our eyes are not very good at picking up color in the more purple spectrums.
Mhm.
Um, my understanding, now it's been a long time since I took a class on this, but my understanding is that there's actually more purple light in the sky than there is blue, but due to the human eye's poor ability to pick up on purple colored light in comparison to blue light, we perceive it as blue because so in a sense, the sky is actually purple
I've heard
because
that
there's more
it's
purple
more
light than
sunrise
blue light.
colors.
Anyways, I just think that's interesting. And I don't often get an opportunity to bring that up and interrupt a different conversation with it. I just got to
Well,
get my nerdy science stuff in there.
well, that's where we get the term ultraviolet, right? Because ultraviolet light is invisible to the naked eye.
Yes, the
For the
ultraviolet is,
most
but
part,
but
yeah.
ultraviolet isn't violet. Ultraviolet essentially means beyond violet. It's the color that's beyond what we can see. I
Plus
mean that there
ultraviolet.
Well,
is
that's why it's called ultraviolet, or that's how the name came about, is because violet is the color that the eye least can see. And so going beyond that, it would be ultraviolet,
If
right?
you go even further
ultra
beyond plus ultra, you get a sunburn.
ultraviolet is beyond violet because if you lay the color out in their spectrum, like because light is just different wavelengths determines
Right.
what color it is, and we can see up through the violet wavelength, and as the wavelength continues past that, that's when it becomes ultraviolet.
Right. Because you have ultraviolet and infrared, and both of them
Right.
are on the opposite ends of that light spectrum.
Yes. We have that very tiny, as far as the spectrum of light goes, there's a very, very small sliver of the light spectrum that human eyes can perceive.
Right.
Everything else is ultraviolet or infrared.
Yep.
Anyways, nerd stuff.
And we're just a minute into the
We're
video.
doing pretty
Oh
good. A
boy.
minute and 10 minutes. That's not bad for us.
Hey, yeah.
Setting records.
Consequences. Moreover, what does an ethical belief look like? Due to the influence of the scientific method, you probably think it's ethical to believe whatever has more evidence. So if tons of academic papers, medical professionals, the government, health department, and Dr. Mike tell you that raw milk is not safe, then maybe we can ignore RFK Jr. taking raw milk shots. But the standard of believing whatever has more evidence becomes tricky when it comes to more conceptual beliefs, such as politics, morality, and religion. For example, how do you weigh evidence for a spiritual belief when spirituality is grounded in faith? As Kierkegaard said, faith is a belief that extends beyond what can be proven by evidence. It is a subjective choice.
See, that's the wording that I'm hoping she expands on, because he talks specifically about proven by evidence. Uh, that that proof is the key word there. Whereas belief and faith don't necessarily have to be without evidence at all.
Okay.
It's just that the evidence isn't proof.
Well, what if you have evidence of both at the same time? Like the raw milk keeps coming back, but it is actually a really good allegory for what she's talking about because it's two total dichotomies that are fighting with each other over something very simple. You got
Uh,
Dr. Mike in his infinite doctorness telling you that it is horrible for you and will kill you. But then you have someone else drinking it publicly and they didn't keel over and die. So you got both pieces of evidence. You have the we'll call it the educated evidence of someone who went to school and learned how the human body works and is telling you that it is this way. And then you have the other side of it of people who are actually living it as opposed to telling you about it that are showing you the opposite. It's kind of like how they used to tell you eggs were terrible for you and would kill you. But
Hmm.
and there are
And
people
now
who
they're a
go
superfood.
carnivore. Yeah, the people who are carnivore eat nothing but eggs and steak, and they're all skinny and fit. They work
Mhm.
out as well, but people who are eating the approved diet, from the Department of Agriculture, not the Department of Health, asterisk there, but it's the approved diet of the people who know better, but they're the ones who are all fat and sick and dying, when the people who don't do that are the ones who are essentially healthier overall because they're not doing it. What we're being told and the evidence of what we see just aren't lining up.
Well, and that's you're answering your own question of what is sufficient evidence. The evidence that you're talking about, or at least the stronger evidence, would be the in person or the more real um, uh, visuals or interactions that you come across um, that will help guide your understanding of whatever subject that you're needing evidence on.
To be clear,
And
I wouldn't consider that like elite level absolute proof, but it is certainly supporting evidence. It is
right,
in support of
well,
the opposite side.
and in some cases it can just be anecdotal, but in it being anecdotal, either you are witnessing firsthand the ramifications or the consequences of whatever the topic is. And you can make a judgment on that personal experience that you have.
I've noticed
Or
a lot of people these days will hear anecdotal evidence and then say that's anecdotal as like a gotcha to totally disregard it. But anecdotal evidence is not evidence, if that makes sense. Like it is still evidence of a sort. It is just evidence without full context.
right. And a lot of times, and I've seen this online myself, uh, people will sometimes weigh statistical evidence over
Yes.
anecdotal evidence when I find it a little bit funny because the statistic that you're talking about could be just as skewed as the
Or
anecdotal
inherently
evidence.
biased.
Exactly.
Bias is a huge
So
part of
it's on what is the source that you're trusting in this case. And a lot of our worldviews are based on trust, or should I say, faith in the sources that are giving us this information.
Although I will say you're 100% right. Although I will say nowadays, a lot of it seems to be coming from a lack of trust in those sources. If the government told me today that milk was good for you, I would look at it like it was poison. What are they trying to tell me?
Very true. And it's because there is that opposite, I guess you could say, or it's not even opposite. It's faith in that whatever the government is saying is a lie.
It's a lack of faith in the system itself,
Exactly.
in the integrity of it.
To accept the unknown and trust that there is something larger than oneself. If faith is what gives deep meaning to some people's lives, then maybe we should revisit what we consider to be an ethical belief. To help us think through these issues, let's look at two
Can
philosophies
we
that
pause
argue
real
when it's
quick? She did. I meant to bring it up, but she touched on it at the end. She was talking about blind belief to an extent. Touched on it. I'm sure she'll get into it a little more here, but
Hmm.
I don't see a problem inherently with blind belief. I mean, yes, that's to an small extent, the foundation of some religious principles is the blind faith. for the unexplainable. But I think that to get to a point of scientific discovery, you have to have some blind faith anyway. Because, like, remember that 1,000 years ago, people thought the earth was flat until one person had blind faith that it wasn't and collected the evidence to say it was round and presented it to Queen Isabella in the 1400s. Like, hey, the earth's round. And then the Greeks, Aristotle figured it out too. Same thing. They thought, I'm assuming they thought the earth was flat. They may have had other theories, for the time. But Aristotle looked through something or other, charted the stars, and said, hey, this ain't adding up. Maybe the earth's round. He had the faith up to that point, even though he couldn't prove it to no fault that that was the case. He had the blind faith that what he thought and seen was true. So it's a little bit of both. You have blind faith, and then you gather evidence going forward to support it or disprove it. You just have to be open to the disproof side of it as well.
This is where I would disagree with you, Rhino. I wouldn't call that blind faith, because what you're discussing is they have evidence of what uh, they are believing.
Okay. Let me
It's
give
just
you
not
a less
proof.
concrete example, something less realistic to all of us.
Mhm.
Ghosts, a harmless belief, right? For the most part, I can't think of anyone that's really hurt by the belief in ghosts, like casually. If you believe in
Children.
ghosts, there's no real fair, but there's no real like tangible harm unless you get scammed by like a soothsayer or something that you believe in ghosts. And that is to an extent a blind faith. But that blind faith in the belief of ghosts, even though, we all hear ghost stories and stuff like that, with a lack of real evidence, does lead to people exploring the existence of ghosts and to try to collect proof of their existence going
Again,
forward.
this is where I would push back on you, Rhino, because you talk about a blind faith, and I think this is where we really need to hammer out our terms here, because blind faith is no evidence whatsoever, whereas like the belief in ghosts, um, there is plenty of stories to validate a belief in ghosts. That's evidence in of itself. We were talking about anecdotal evidence.
Yeah.
And in those sources, if you have enough people talking about ghosts, that is evidence of an existence. Now, is it factual and proven? No,
Okay.
but
So,
it is
so by that
evidential.
definition, to have blind faith, it would have to be something that people aren't discussing.
To have blind faith, it's something that there isn't even evidence for.
I mean, unless you got some ectoplasm at your house, I mean, like
Well,
what evidence do you would you consider evidence of ghosts other than because for you to believe anything, even to yourself is the one making the anecdote. You're telling people I think this, even if they don't believe you, you are the anecdotal evidence for that. So like
no.
if no
What
one's
I
ever
mean,
heard of a ghost before, but I come in here and it's like, hey guys, I think we got some spookums over here and I described it to you. I am now the anecdotal evidence going forward. But by that definition, it wouldn't be blind faith because I just created the evidence.
uh, you have testimony, yes, but when it comes to anecdotal evidence, it's determined on, well, what is your credibility on the subject? Um, and when it comes to anecdotal evidence, more witnesses create more
Yeah,
credibility.
more is
Um,
better. But I'm just saying that that shouldn't be the bar for blind faith. Because I think
well,
blind is,
like I would consider blind faith very much in the sphere of like a cult member,
yes,
because
it can be.
the cult
Because it's
leader
also a
is
disregard
promising
for counter
something
evidence.
that has zero evidence. Um, they haven't seen the fruits of the what the leader is promising,
Mhm.
and it's always a future promise. It's always something that's going to be, but hasn't been actualized. Only when it's been
That is
actualized
that
is
is
there
correct.
evidence.
It is an extreme example, but I will agree that that is a correct example as well.
See,
But
but
by
that's
that
why
very
I would say
definition, though,
blind faith
the
is
cult leader
very.
is saying it's a thing. But by the definition, if anecdotal evidence does count, then even the cult leader isn't following blind faith. It's not heavily supported, but the anecdote is still there.
So
That's
the
why I
blind
don't.
faith comes from his followers, and why I would say it's blind faith is because um, they don't have any other follower. Like if he has just sprung up and he's giving you all of these either prophecies or promises of something happening, but you have uh, nothing to show for the credibility of his
Yeah.
words. And there are no witnesses to the credibility of
Can
him.
we just agree
That
that
is
there's
blind faith.
some wiggle room in the term?
Gleeman's
Okay.
never going to agree to some wiggle
I
room.
know he's not,
Let
but I
me
love asking him it.
let me I pulled up a
Yeah, let's get Teddy's opinion on it.
couple of definitions on it.
Okay.
These aren't mine, just things that I searched. Blind faith refers to believing in something without questioning or seeking evidence. It often implies an unconditional trust in ideas, people, or doctrines, typically without critical examination. That's the first one.
Okay.
And the second one, blind faith means accepting a belief, person, or idea completely without any proof, logic, or reason, and refusing to question it, even if facts prove it wrong. I do
Okay.
think that refusal to question it
That seems
is
like it's the sticking
it,
point for the definition.
an important part to that blind
Yeah.
faith. It's not just that there's no evidence, it's that
Okay.
they refuse evidence. They laugh in the face of evidence and continue believing it despite
So
evidence
let's use a
showing
different
otherwise.
term for it instead of blind faith. We'll call it unfounded faith, because blind faith would also include the disregard of evidence that already exists. I think calling it unfounded would be a little bit of a better descriptor. There may be some proof, there may be not, but it at least implies that there's a lack of supporting evidence.
Okay, so you're using proof and evidence interchangeably, which I have a problem with.
Oh dear God. Gleeman, work with me, dude.
But I laid out my terms. There's a difference between evidence and proof.
Teddy, help me, man. I'm
This
just
is
one person. I'm just a man, Gleeman.
I am too. And I can hold to these terms as I've set forth.
Okay. So to narrow down our terms as you like to do so much, evidence is supporting an idea. Proof is finalizing it. Can we agree on that definition, even though I'm totally going to interchange them again later?
Yes.
Okay. For those at home, you have the definition. Just guess which one I mean when I mix them up later. Just
Good
wing it.
God.
Play a
once
game.
again,
You figure out which I mean.
the murder weapon being found in your car is evidence.
Yes.
A video showing you actually doing it, a video made before the time of AI where it could be faked, that is proof.
I totally don't even remember why I got on that tangent. I had a point and I've totally lost it over the
Yep.
definitions of things.
We got
Every
lost in the
fucking time,
definitions.
every time.
If you would just stick to the definitions, we wouldn't get lost in them.
Call me Webster because I'm useless.
How far are we into the video?
All right, almost 2 minutes in.
We're doing so good, Gleeman.
How are we doing on the recording side?
About 40 minutes in.
Good God.
You did this, Gleeman. You did this. You just can never take my argument on the face of what it is.
The two of you work together on this, you know.
We really do. It's
You
horrible.
require a lot of wiggle room, which I will not give you.
I will give you a minor amount of wiggle room.
Yeah. The intent. You got to go by the intent of what I'm trying to say, because I think I make it pretty clear what I'm going for.
Mm,
To be fair, my vocabulary is not as large as yours, and I don't use things as descriptively as you do. You are much better at that than me, and I have complimented you for it many times.
and you,
Let's continue with the video.
I'm trying to come
And
up with a
Rhino,
compliment for you.
Rhino, if you remember,
You didn't
you
have to
remember the.
try, you
If you
bastard.
remember the point you were trying to make, just feel free to pause us
It's
again. But
gone.
let's just keep going.
Permissible to believe something. We got evidentialism on one side, represented by W.K. Clifford's essay, The Ethics of Belief, and pragmatism on the other, represented by William James' essay, The Will to Believe. Let me bring them in. It is wrong always, everywhere, and for anyone to believe anything upon insufficient evidence. This is the evidentialist's belief. Yes, hi, that is I. To jog our intuitions here, let me give you a scenario. Suppose a ship owner suspects that his ship might not be safe to sail. He's thinking, oh gosh, this ship is pretty old. It's seen the ocean more than I've seen my children. Ugh, repairing this ship is gonna cost me a lot of money. But as he's thinking, he overcomes these doubts and ends up believing that the ship is safe to sail. Actually, the fact that this ship has sailed so many times is good reason to believe that the ship will sail safely. I mean, that's how probability works, right? Also, God is supposed to be benevolent, and I've been showing up semi-regularly to church. God wouldn't let all those passengers sink. Besides, you can't.
Hold on. She does have a point here. She's using this to accentuate what she's going to say about the ship as it goes. So let's let her finish her thought in this one.
Okay.
I heard you firing up.
Okay.
Can't trust anyone with your ship these days. They'll charge you a fortune just to do a sloppy job. Yeah. The ship is gonna be just fine. The ship owner sincerely believes this. He sends a bunch of people off to sea. A week later, the ship sinks and all the passengers are lost. People tend to think that the ship owner is guilty in some way. It doesn't matter that he genuinely believed the ship was safe to sail. The belief was false, which caused people to die. In fact, the ship owner knowingly.
Yeah, you can pause.
This makes me think of that little submarine that imploded.
Yes.
That the guy, he thought it was
put me
safe to sail.
exactly in the same mind of it. I was thinking of that when I seen it the first time too. Now, Gleeman, I know you have thoughts, so let's go ahead and get them out of the way, and then I will discuss it from there.
My one thought is, why she'd have to bring God into this?
Because it actually does help her point. It is about the belief of what's going to happen. He believes that because the ship has gone out and came back. He believes because good people who go to church, right? So that's two different types and layers of belief, plus the idea that it is expensive, so it is not worth it, and you can't trust other people is actually a disbelief that supports it. So that's three
But
different layers of belief.
how she was framing the introduction of why God was brought up was part of the evidence.
Yes, because that would be, to a person of that faith, that would be evidence thinking in that way. It is just a compounding of factors. She's just laying down all the factors that could lead someone to that conclusion. It was not a
so
religious
she's
attack.
describing a very stupid person.
Agreed.
I think
but
so. Yeah, that's what I was getting out of it, because that is not the way that probability works either. Like he was wrong about everything that he was saying there with those beliefs.
Hold on.
Also, it doesn't necessarily describe what I would say is the typical Christian belief in God.
No, it
and how
is not.
God works.
But can you say with all honesty that there are not people out there right now handling venomous snakes that think, as long as I believe enough in God, this snake will not bite me?
Oh, I'm fairly certain that there are stupid people like that,
That
yes.
I'm not going to call them stupid, but what she's doing is she's using that to accentuate that there are multiple kinds of belief that can lead someone to the same conclusion, and them compounding can lead someone. Yes, this is, and to an extent, she is playing it up a bit because it is the conclusion that she also believes in. She put her bias out in the beginning,
Hmm.
that this is her foundation of belief, that this is not the correct way of thinking. So, yes, it is going to be an extreme case, but you can also say that from the counterpoint to argue against it, that you could see how someone could look at these things and come to that conclusion. If my car started today, I wouldn't have a reason to think it wouldn't start tomorrow. If I didn't get into a car crash today, I would be safe to assume that I'm not going to get into one tomorrow because I haven't gotten into one before. If I've gone 10 years without ever getting into a car crash, I have no reason to assume that's going to change the next day.
That's very
Yeah,
true
but the
with
but
all of that. But when it comes to this very specific analogy that she's brought up, um, one of the things that I immediately thought of was, have you checked the hull for leaks? Have have you checked the masts to make sure
What she's
that
getting at,
they're good?
what she's
Have you
getting
checked the
at as a whole,
roads?
as a whole, yes, I know we're getting pedantic, Gleeman, but what she's getting at as a whole in concept is the belief that because something has happened that way before, up to that point, it will happen again without question. And we all do this. This is like inherent to people as a whole. We all think that because I haven't had a heart attack up to this point in my life, so when I get up tomorrow, I will have no reason to suspect it will happen again. And that's all she's doing, is she's explaining that logical follow through. That people,
except I think that there's a key point here is that I think she's trying to show that it's bad
yes, she is. She is
to
taking the it's bad frame of it, but I'm explaining that this is the
r-
logical framework that she's trying to show.
right,
Yes, she
but
is showing it negatively.
and I get that. I get that she's trying to show that it's bad, but she also gave the immediate evidence that the ship is very old. The guy knew the
Mhm.
ship was very old. The guy is
Yes,
essentially being extremely reckless. I don't think it's if I believe that I'm not going to get into a car accident tomorrow because I didn't get into one today and I haven't been in one in a long time, I don't think that that's a morally bad thing. Whereas this person who is being not just, oh, I don't think it's going to happen, but he's being reckless with it.
yes, he is. He
That
is being a reckless man
there's a
about it.
big difference between I don't think the ship is going to sink and because I don't think the ship is going to sink, I'm going to be reckless and let the ship fall into
Yes.
disrepair and allow people to die.
And he's also denying any evidence that has been presented to him that the ship could sink because he starts out with the ship is very old. And
Yes. This
uh,
is an example in its extremity, but she is just using it to lay out a line of thinking,
I,
right?
Yeah,
That's all.
agree.
I'm saying that I disagree with her line of thinking because the line of thinking is supposed to be that he believes something without evidence and therefore
Yes.
that's a bad thing. It's a morally bad thing to believe things without evidence. And I don't think that that is the part that's morally bad. I don't think it's bad that he believed the ship wasn't gonna go
Uh,
down. I think the recklessness is the bad part.
and the denial of the evidence that was put in front of him, which was the old
Which is
ship.
part of evidentialism. But yeah, that, that's all. It's just an extreme example.
He suppressed his own doubts instead of giving them weight or finding external perspectives. Extra guilty behavior. But for evidentialists like I, the problem is not that the ship owner acted on a false belief. It's that he had no right to hold such a belief. Even if the ship ended up sailing safely, I say that it was still wrong for the ship owner to believe that the ship was safe. The real problem with his belief was not the outcome, but the belief's basis on insufficient evidence. Quote, "When an action is once done, it is right or wrong forever. No accidental failure of its good or evil fruits can possibly alter that. The man would not have been innocent, he would only have been not found out." The question of right or wrong has to do with the origin of his belief, not the matter of it. Not what it was, but how he got it. If you don't have strong evidence for your belief,
Where was
then
that
you
quote
ought
from?
not to believe.
Did she say where that quote was coming from?
That was the
Or was
very
that
old tech guy that she was showing
gotcha?
earlier, who had found it.
I
I
find it
forget the
interesting that he mixes together action and belief. Like an action cannot be undone, but it's wrong that he believed it. And that's
Well,
something that I disagree with.
he's saying that even if the outcome comes out to be good, um,
It's
if
not
it
that he
was
wasn't
done,
wrong. It's just that he
if it
wasn't
was,
discovered.
yeah, that is very interesting, and I can see that being the case in some circumstances.
I could see that
Um,
being the case in most things, because I know people always like to talk in shades of gray, but for the most part, morality is fairly black and white until you get into like real nitty-gritty details about complicated situations.
well, I think morality is completely black and white, but that's
Yeah.
just me.
I
I
think
give it a
that
little more leeway, but
I
I
think
will say,
I,
most people in the Western world agree on morality.
yeah, there might be
well,
some
On
squabbles, but for the most part, we got it locked in.
well,
murder
for
bad, stealing bad.
for me, morality is a black and white matter, and then you apply mercy and grace where needed. But the morality of an action can be strictly black and white.
I, in generalities, I'll agree with you.
As far as what she was talking about, uh, it is an interesting concept. I still don't like her analogy, but
So,
I will
so
hold off judgment.
let's put this to something different instead of the boat theory, because I think what the guy is saying is that again, it's like the bank robbery. Even though you got away with it, it is still wrong, whether people know you did it or not. The morality of it is predetermined, regardless of the circumstances in which it happened. Which I will say I'm probably 90-10 on this. Circumstances do change the morality of things sometimes, but for the most part, I'll agree with that. I just don't think it's as black and white as she's putting out there. There are some shades of gray in it.
I still have a big issue with him, the guy she's quoting, conflating action and belief. Saying once an action is done, it can't be undone. It's right or wrong forever. The problem is with his
Yes,
belief or whatever. Like
the belief that
if
led up to that action. So if
but it
I
could have
think I
been the
can,
exact in her example, it could have been the exact opposite, where the guy
yes,
firmly believed that uh, that it would sail, but
yes,
still chose to be responsible and to act in a way kind of against his own belief. I don't even know if it's against, but act in a way to fix the boat and stuff. He
yes,
does
and
would
that
he
would have
still
been the
have been
good action.
wrong?
No, that would have
The
been the
good,
good action.
but the in his quote he's saying that um, the question of right or wrong has to do with the origin of his belief.
Yes, but the belief is what leads to the action. So if I go to
But
rob a
if
bank, whether I think I'll get away with it or not, the idea that I can rob a bank is what's wrong. It's the moral leading up to it before any action is taken. So in the boat circumstances, it doesn't matter whether the boat makes it to the place or not. If I think the boat will make it, but I don't take the right actions that will ensure it,
but
that's the moral failure.
you can take actions that
It's
are
the belief that it
not in
will.
line with your belief.
Yes.
If I believe that the ship will make it, but I choose to go and have it repaired anyways to make sure to be responsible and to not be reckless,
Hmm.
then
It's
it's wrong that
No, no,
believed it would make
that's
it.
not what's wrong. What would be
The
wrong
statement
is
is that
not.
it is wrong. The belief is what's wrong.
No, no.
That's
What they're
from
saying is,
right. I'm looking at it on screen. The question
go
of
ahead.
right or
Let's,
wrong has to do with the
Gleeman, can we
origin of
back
his
up to
belief, not the matter of it.
the statement itself, just so I
mm,
can read it one more time, because I could be misunderstanding.
That's
The
why I'm saying he's mixing action and belief together, despite action and belief not being the same thing. That's what I'm having an issue with.
okay. So
Yeah.
when an action is once done,
Hmm. You can just play it, brother.
okay,
Or wrong forever. No
it is right or wrong forever.
accidental
Yes.
failure of its good or evil fruits can possibly.
So once you take an action, that action is done and you cannot take it back because it is complete. No accidental
Sure.
failure of its good or evil fruits, meaning regardless of what the outcome of the action is, could possibly alter the fact that you took that action. So whether the boat
Okay.
makes it or not, it does not change the fact that you did the thing.
But
So
what
let's continue.
Teddy is talking about
Mhm.
is even though his belief
Yeah,
is that
the
the
boat will
boat
make it.
will make it, he
Yes,
takes the actions
yes,
against his
without.
belief to ensure that the boat will make it by repairing what needs to be repaired, even though he was sure that the boat
Well,
could make it on its own.
the question wasn't whether or not he believed it would or wouldn't. It was whether he had the right to hold that belief in the first place, whether he had done due diligence up to that point. It's not a question of the belief and what the belief is, but where it comes from. If we go back to the part of it where she speaks specifically at the belief, it's that big block of text. It should be a little bit before this. Keep going back a little ways, a little bit past. I think it's the wrong way. It's in this gray text. It's just a big block of it in here
Oh,
somewhere.
uh, okay, let me.
Alter that. The man would not have been innocent, he would only have been not found out. The question of right or wrong has to do with the origin of his belief.
Origin of his belief, not the matter of it. So, what was the context leading up to him having those beliefs in the first place? Did he do due diligence? Is he right? And does he have a foundation for those
Okay.
beliefs that is justifiable?
So then under that premise, I
Mhm.
would be wrong if I believed that the ship would make it, even though it's old, but I
Yeah.
still chose to get it repaired and chose to invest into making it properly seaworthy. I would be wrong because I had the belief that it would be,
It would be okay.
even though I took the right action, I would be wrong because of my belief.
Question of right or wrong has to do with the origin of his belief, not the matter of it.
That's what I'm saying is that it's mixing belief and action as though you are incapable of acting against your belief. Like I might believe that it's going to be fine, but a friend of mine says, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa. That ship is not ready to go." And so I say,
Now,
"Fine,
now we have,
we'll pay for it to be fixed up. I believe it's going to be fine, but I'll do this
but that
anyways."
goes into the second part of it, where it's the outcome, regardless of the like the final fruit of the belief. It
But what
is,
about
did
this
you take?
sentence on the screen right now?
This sentence right here says the question of right or wrong has to do with the origin of the belief,
Yes.
not the matter of it.
Was it
So
found?
the outcome is uh, doesn't matter in this case.
Also,
The
the steps themselves that you take don't matter either, as long as they are founded, right? So if you're like Teddy's example, if you think your ship will make it, you have good reason to think it will make it. You want to give it a once over just in case. I don't think that contradicts this necessarily
I
because
think it
the origin of
does.
your belief is that it'll make it, but it doesn't say anything like you can't be
It's
sure.
stating that Teddy is wrong to believe that it will make it.
But why if his foundation is that he thinks it will because he has sufficient evidence? So if Teddy has a good boat, right? Let's go
Hmm.
right back from the beginning. Follow, see if we're following here. Teddy has a good, sturdy boat. Nothing wrong with it. He takes good care of it. And he's going to sail to Africa. And before he sails, he goes, I have good reason. The sails are good. I give it the once over. But just in case, let me have a guy give this a once over and look at it. Now, Teddy, are you saying that you're wrong for having it be given the once over, even though you already think it will make
So,
it?
Rhino, I think you're
Is that where
muddying the waters a little bit.
I'm?
Let's
That's
stick
where the
to what
confusion is coming
she
from.
has
That's
proposed.
what I am doing. The
No,
question
no,
of
you
right
are
or wrong,
changing the circumstances.
I'm not.
You are
I'm
now
not.
giving him
The
a
question.
good boat. You are now giving
Okay,
him a good boat, and you're now saying he gave it a once over. No, 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 no.
it's the same
Let's
thing in
go
both.
back to old
Gleeman,
boat
time out. Okay,
hasn't
old boat.
given him a once
He
over.
hasn't given he hasn't given it a once over, but he still thinks it'll go. Right? The
Hmm.
question of right or wrong has to do with the origin of his belief. He had no good reason other than the poor foundation of it's done it before to think that the boat will make it.
Is that a
Right?
poor foundation?
Yes, it is. In this line of logic, it is because it is poor supporting evidence, which is what this is like being founded on. You do not have enough evidence to support that belief. Whereas if the opposite were true, which is where I was going, let's say you had a good boat that was going to make the trip, but you still wanted someone to give it once over, you wouldn't be wrong in doing that because even though you had a good foundation, there's nothing wrong with being sure. It's not about sureness, it's about the evidence leading up to affirm that belief. It's about the proof, you know, as
See, and this
we
is
like to say,
where
and supporting evidence that drives you there.
I disagree with this belief structure that she's putting forth, where I do believe that it's the recklessness, it's the action that's wrong, not necessarily the belief. If he believes that the if you believe that the ship is good to sail, even if you believe it without evidence, but you still take the proper precautions to
Yes.
to make sure it's good, then that should not be wrong because you took the action
Well, yeah,
that was
because
necessary. Do you think that it's wrong that you if you believe the ship was good to sail even though it wasn't, and then you
And
decided to pay to get it fixed anyways,
okay.
would you be in the
and
wrong? Do you personally think
No,
it's in the wrong?
because despite your beliefs, you took actions that are supporting the proper outcome. You took the actions that will reaffirm your belief that it can do that. So if your
And
ship was
that's
going
my
to
point is that
and your
the
opinion is opposite of what this is stating.
yes,
this
because this is
individual
stating
sentence,
that yeah, this sentence is saying that the
Regardless
question
of the outcome, the belief was wrong, so therefore you are wrong.
not the belief itself, the origin, where it comes from, the things leading up to that belief, where the belief is found, what the belief is founded on, not the matter of it, not the rightness or wrongness of the belief itself. It's the evidence leading up to the belief. Is if I believe that Gleeman is a murderer, and that is my belief, but I have no evidence, right? That is the matter of my belief. The matter is the belief itself. The origin of my belief is everything leading up to it, the evidence supporting it. That is what it is saying. The question of right or wrong has to do with the origin, where the belief comes from, not the matter of it, not what the belief is. So it's more about the foundation of what you think than what you think specifically,
Okay, so
and then taking the actions
going back to the analogy,
Mhm.
the while it was poor evidence, it was still evidence
Yes, it was.
because the
She would
boat
say it.
or
I think she would agree that it was evidence, but it was poorly founded evidence.
I can't even say that it was poorly founded evidence because the evidence of it having sailed before and being good to sail um, as evidence isn't necessarily poorly founded evidence. It's just poor evidence when uh,
Yes.
in the face of it's an old ship.
I'm also not really a huge fan of this analogy she chose to begin with, because there's no explanation of why the ship went down. Like, it could,
I think where
if
the
you get
problem,
caught in certain storm, even a good ship could go
yeah,
down.
yeah. I think the problem is actually less in the analogy that she has, but in this quote over right here and the lack of like expansion on it, which I understand that it's a quote from someone that's probably part of a much larger text. So you kind of work with
Hmm.
what you got here.
Right.
But
So,
I think it could do with elaboration or like a, like a sub note, like explaining it or where you could find more on it.
can I ask then? So if whether you're right or wrong,
Mhm.
morally speaking, has to do with the origin of your belief in things, how serious does something have to be in order for you to be morally wrong to believe it?
Well, I
For
think
instance,
that
if I look at a
that's a good
fruit that
question.
I've never if I look at a fruit that I've never eaten before and I say, I don't think I'm going to like that. That doesn't look
Mhm.
appetizing to me. I have no evidence of it, zero foundational evidence to know whether or not I'm
Yeah.
going to like it, but I just assume I'm not going to. Am I morally wrong for doing so?
I think we
In this
should
context,
skip
yes.
to ethically wrong.
Well, yeah. I
There's
mean,
a difference between moral and ethic.
yes, true, but I get what you mean, Teddy. I think in this context, using this line of logic, yes, because now in the same scenario, if you saw a piece of fruit that you didn't know if you liked, and you picked it up, you felt it in your hand, you got the texture, you peeled a piece off, you smelled it, and it seemed okay, and then you tried it, now you have done the due diligence beforehand. You have a foundation for your belief that you may or may not like it. And whether you do or do not like it after that fact is irrelevant. You took the proper steps to found the origin of your belief.
So if I choose not to found the origin of my belief in that fruit, if I just say, I'm pretty sure I'm not going to like that, it looks terrible,
And yes, in this
then
context, that would
I'm a
also be
bad
morally
person.
wrong. Not a bad person. No,
I'm
that's
ethically
not what you're
wrong.
saying.
Well,
When they say,
that's where I'm asking. Like, what level of, for someone to be right or wrong in ethics or in.
oh, let me because this seems to be a point of confusion and maybe contention here. When they say like ethics and morals here, I think they're not talking about morals as in like good and evil. We're talking about character foundations and societal good. I know that's
Okay,
kind of like
so
a weird way
I'm
to
negative to
look at
societal good if I choose to
it.
not eat a
Potentially,
fruit based
if
on
it
no
was something to
evidence.
a big enough scale, you could do more harm than good. What if there was 50 people using the shift example? That's a whole crew lost because you didn't do due diligence to reinforce and affirm whether your belief was right or wrong.
And this is why I'm asking, how serious of a thing does it have to be? Because the statement is they're right or wrong based on the origin of their belief, but nothing about the
The
importance of the
severity.
belief
Yeah.
or the severity of the belief or the action, which
Well,
is
I don't
where I
think the
again
importance is,
stand by the statement that it is the recklessness that is bad, not his belief that it was.
well, I
I mean,
think
I
the
might
person,
disagree, but I don't think that he's ethically wrong for having the belief. I do
I
think that
think the
he.
person who made this quote, if you had brought that up to them, would argue that that action in itself would be paramount to recklessness. The not founding the origin of your belief would be the equivalent to doing a reckless thing. Because by not founding the origin of your belief, that in and itself makes what you're doing reckless by nature, even if it has a good or bad outcome, not the matter of it. So, regardless of whether it works out or not, the fact that you didn't do due diligence beforehand is what makes it reckless or
Okay.
right or wrong.
So
Is
again, then I disagree with them, and that's fine.
yeah, that's okay. I really hate the wording of this, but I have a feeling that this quote is probably from like the 40s or beforehand. So
That's what I'm assuming.
the wording on here
Not
is definitely a product of its time.
the matter of it, not what it was, but how he got it. If you don't have strong evidence for your belief, then you ought not to believe. It's better to remain in doubt than to believe in something false. One way to interpret the evidentialist argument is to think of it like rule consequentialism. Rule consequentialism says that we should follow a set of rules. If generally followed, it would produce optimal consequences. Thus, an act is wrong if it violates one of those rules. We can use rule consequentialism to support evidentialism like this. 1. As a general rule, prohibiting beliefs without evidence leads to the best consequences. 2. Therefore, it is always wrong to believe without evidence, even if sometimes it's harmless. Let's break.
Okay.
Okay, so then,
He's
yeah,
elaborating.
they are saying that it would be wrong to believe that a fruit
Yes.
is going to be bad.
Yes. Now, to be clear, they don't mean you're evil for doing it. It is just the wrong thing to do. You should always endeavor to, and I do not follow this line of thinking, by the way. I do not support evidentialism by itself, but this is a line of thinking in the same way that um, like Kentism would be for morality. You know, it is just a set of guidelines. As a general rule, prohibiting beliefs without evidence, specifically prohibiting, leads to the best consequences. So if everyone took all the beliefs that they had that didn't have evidence, or in this case, maybe enough evidence, if we were going to broaden it, that would have the best consequences. And I don't think that this is wrong in its entirety, but I feel like it's just too tight. You know what I mean?
Well, I think it is specifically this tight for a reason. I would say prohibiting beliefs without evidence, full stop, leads to the best consequences. I don't necessarily have a problem with that. Um, because I'm not a fan of blind faith.
I think
Down that.
again, I'm 90-10 on this. I feel like given time and if you thought about it long enough, you could probably come to some exceptions to where good has come from breaking this rule. It may be a lack of evidence at the time, but how much evidence is evidence also, you know? But it's a old dead guy talking, so can't really call him up and ask him where the gray area is.
First premise. Every belief has some influence on action. Now, some of you are going, nuh-uh, I have some beliefs that stay up in my head only. I can separate what's up here from what I actually do. To that, I must disagree. When we make decisions on how we act, it is never a totally open and free choice. Once we believe something, it's impossible to not have that belief influence our actions. After all, the conviction of a belief is what distinguishes belief from mere thought. Quote, no real belief, however trifling and fragmentary it may seem, is ever truly insignificant. It prepares us to receive more of its like, confirms those which resembled it before, and weakens others. And so gradually it lays a stealthy train in our inmost thoughts, which may someday explode into overt action and leave its stamp upon our character forever.
I mean, I would agree with this
I would agree
statement.
with that wholeheartedly.
Exactly. This one
That
I have no problem with.
Yeah, I'm not. Since she got to the list, the 2 points up until now, I'm struggling to find something that I can really fight back against. I'm trying, but I'm not finding anything.
Yeah, that first example that she gave, the quote was what made it so hard to parse. The
Well,
quote made it
also
difficult.
the analogy was
Yeah,
very bad
I get why
to
she
go with.
used it, but it's you know you take what you get. Now we're
They're not
cooking.
going. Nobody's going to bat 100 all the time. So, I
Overall, I
don't.
think she's doing a great job. I think this was a good choice of video too. So,
Yes.
For
Olivia
such a
Sun, if you do
complicated,
watch, if you do some for some reason watch this, we don't hate you or anything. We just like getting into the weeds on stuff.
Good God.
some more
I
than
hope she
others.
doesn't take it as I hate her or anything. Although I am very grateful for her because this is a very lively conversation.
It's also a difficult topic and a complex one. Like, even though it's simple on its face, there's a lot of depth to it as you dig down further and further that you can really find more and more arguments for. Because we have this particular argument, but then I'm sure if we looked into it, we'd find the 700 counter arguments to it as well.
Hmm.
When we act on beliefs with insufficient evidence, we cause harm to others and ourselves. We create a bad habit of being dishonest. Society will become credulous and lose the habit of testing things and inquiring into them, for then it must sink back into savagery. There's this domino effect where caring about the truth of our beliefs causes others to care about the truth of their beliefs too. Men speak the truth to one another when each reveres the truth in his own mind and in the other's mind. No one will bother being truthful to you if they know you are careless about your own beliefs. Why?
And
See,
again,
I disagree with that statement. That's when I
this
hard disagree.
well, this is where I think the statement changes when your definition of the truth changes. Because I would actually agree with this statement, but because I believe the truth is immutable.
Can
Um,
we, for the purpose of this, because I think in this context of this, at least the way I'm taking it, we assume that when they say truth, they are meaning the opposite of a lie, because that's the way that I am reading it personally. As in, if a person knows, if we have someone in here who has no conviction in their own beliefs, I think it would be reasonable for, at least using this statement she just said,
so
it would make us assume
the
that they
word
were
that
going
is
to lie
opposite
to us.
of a lie, how I would define it, the word that is opposite of a lie is honesty, being honest. It doesn't necessarily mean truth.
Okay. I mean, I can go with you on that one.
Well, and that's it does kind of in your definition that you used earlier, or at least your caveat that you added earlier, that when you say you think something is true, it
Yeah.
means it's true as far as you know.
Yeah.
You're giving uh, an honest
Opinion.
telling, opinion, an
Yeah.
honest
So
recantation, whatever.
using this statement that she said, if we had a fourth person here who was infirm in their character and belief, we would have less of a reason to assume that they were giving us the truth as a whole. I think that's what the statement is like trying to get at. I just don't necessarily buy that in its entirety. I get
Okay,
what it's
so
going
one
for, but I
second.
just don't totally
Let
hasn't
me have
sold me.
her reread it again.
Beliefs causes others to care about the truth of their beliefs too. Men speak the truth to one another when each reveres the truth in his own mind and in the other's mind.
Okay, so that is the principle of it.
That I can get
Men,
behind.
yes, men speak the truth when each reveres the truth both in their own mind and in the other's mind.
If we were to remove the word truth, I think another like equally true statement, for lack of a better word, would be if you have confidence of character, right, and firmness of belief when you speak to other people who have the same thing, honesty will come out. There's no second guessing, no judging. You can be truthful in what you're saying.
Well, and this word here, reveres, I think that is a very heavy word and it's a very sufficient word for this. Reveres means that you put it on a pedestal, that
Agreed.
it is in a place of high regard.
Yeah.
And so you're not going to belittle it. And that means you're not going to belittle what you believe to be true and what the other person believes to be true. And in that case, both of you are communicating as honestly as possible between each other.
Man, that means I have to start revering what Rhino believes to
Rhino
be true.
Right.
believes.
Yep.
All right, Rhino.
Say it with me. Commas aren't real.
No!
Apostrophes are fake and gay.
It hurts
See,
my soul.
I will revere that you honestly believe that. And so
No,
communication is being had.
but to be fair, like all joking aside, I do stand behind this statement 100%. Even if we may vary slightly in the interpretation, I think we can all agree that this is in the right direction of what we can all agree is true.
Yes.
I think it's the
No one
next statement of or the one that came beforehand of someone who doesn't have that is it doesn't necessarily mean that they are going to lie or that you won't take them as seriously though.
Okay, I think
That
it's
that's
what
just
she's about to say.
yeah.
will bother being truthful to you if they know you are careless about your own beliefs.
Hmm.
See, that's
No
where
one.
I find a little disagreement. Now, I'm not saying that it's impossible that someone could come to that conclusion and act that way, but I just don't think it's a given.
That is very interesting because I'm trying to think of my own experiences with either a deceitful person or at least an untrustworthy person. I will say I become a lot more flippant in my language because I know that my words are falling on deaf ears.
So deaf.
I think of people that I like, people on X that I know have beliefs that are contradictory, that they just don't make any sense. And people often refer to them as like quangos or whatever.
Mhm.
Um, and how little desire I have to actually try to engage in a good faith discussion with them, because I know that they're not going to they're not going to be willing to actually take in what people say, because like she's saying here, if they if they don't if they're, oh, what's the word that she used, if they're not careful, if they're
Okay.
flippant
2.
with their
Men
own
speak the
beliefs.
truth,
Okay. Dude. No one will bother being truthful
bother being truthful to you if they
if they
know you are
know.
careless.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they're careless with their own beliefs, they're not believing in
Uh,
things that can possibly make sense together, then why would I try to spend my time and energy being truthful to you and try to explain something to you?
I think I'm gonna have to disagree with Teddy for once here
All
because
right, bring it on.
I really think that it depends on where the belief is coming from. Like you gave the example of a quango, and I think that's a great example to use because a quango by their nature is disingenuous in their belief. They don't honestly think that. I mean, to be fair, they don't
I
honestly think anything. But
I think
let's
there are some that do. They honestly hold. I think there are those that honestly hold um, contradictory beliefs.
I will
They just
agree that
don't
there
know
are
how
some
to
people that do
square
hold
that circle.
contradictory beliefs, but I think a lot of them come from a disingenuous and kind of snaky place with it. And the ones who don't, I think those are the ones who are worth talking to because even though they are firm in they are wrong beliefs, they are firm in them, right? And they kind
mhm.
of the same way the last statement was. Even if the belief is wrong, as long as you are firm in it and coming from a truthful place of what you believe, you can talk to each other as adults on the same level and come to like a mutual understanding. Whereas a person who's disingenuous and snaky with it, you can never have that. Like if we had a person who disagreed with everything we stood for, but was honest in their belief in here, and we just discussed it, I don't think it would turn into a huge blow up session. Whereas someone
Mhm.
who is disingenuous with it, we would pick up on the fact that they're a lying snake very quickly. I think we've all
And
I actually do agree with that.
we have the shorthand that sort of covers this. We call it coming into a conversation in good faith or bad faith.
yes,
And it's interesting that we use the word faith in there, but
in
I
good
believe
agreement.
what you're discussing there is, or what you referenced, Rhino, in that they hold true to their beliefs,
Yes,
and are have conviction in them. It goes back to the original statement of at least we are honestly communicating
yes.
with those
Whereas
held
someone who
beliefs.
doesn't, we cannot.
And I think that's what this defines as being careless
Yeah.
with your own beliefs. They don't actually care what they believe. They care about winning the argument, or they
Mhm.
care about
There is no truth but
having
power.
having
They
power
don't
in the
they don't
conversation.
revere the truth in your mind as you may revere the truth in theirs.
Right. Exactly.
Now,
So,
I do want to clarify real quick though. When I wasn't saying that I would never have a conversation with people that I might assume are quangos or that have these contradictory beliefs. I was just saying that when I see that people have these contradictory beliefs, it lessens my desire to reach out and have
It
a good
does
faith
raise the red flag.
conversation.
You are correct
Yeah,
there.
yeah. I'm less likely to try to have that good faith conversation when
well, I would say we are even told as Christians to not have those sorts of conversations, because it's pouring your own energy into an endeavor that is very pointless. It's called throwing your pearls before swine, and we're told not to do it. Um, and there is an evidence of it whenever you're encountering someone and you can tell that they are bad faith, whether they're moving the goalposts or they are holding contradictory beliefs, um, or they seem just genuinely uninterested in hearing what you have to say. All those things are evidences of a bad faith uh, conversation, I
This is
think.
also why the concept of fellowship in Christianity is so important. Even though I do think most modern Christians have a bad read on it, the idea that your fellow Christians can see what you're doing and see the bad takes that you're currently having and sit down and guide you into the right place is a concept that I can get behind.
Hmm. Absolutely.
you use the pearls before swine reference, Gleeman. Um, I actually originally thought of I think it's Matthew 10:14. If anyone will not welcome you or listen to your words, leave that home or town and shake the dust off your feet. Don't even waste your time with
Absolutely.
them. If they're not willing to listen, just move on.
Yep.
Corinthians 15, if you have fellowship with your brother and he still will not listen, then do not eat with him, do not break bread at his table. And then there's a bunch more other stuff that says the same thing.
So, like,
I
it's
don't
a
know, I
lesson
don't
that
quote
is
scriptures very well.
reiterated time and time again.
Yes. I'm not as good at quoting it as you guys are, but I know the gist.
About your own beliefs. Why engage in good faith discussion with someone if they're just gonna defer to the next YouTube short that pops up on their page? This creates a wider culture of carelessness about beliefs. Evidentialism says this is dangerous because beliefs are social products. They are not spontaneous thoughts that just pop up in an individual's head. We inherit beliefs from our family, our teachers and friends, cultural products like movies and stories, and the broader social world. The average
Pause.
Torontonian believes that
I do think that she is using the term belief to be something far more substantial than my belief as to whether or not a fruit would taste good, right?
Hmm.
Um, I just think that that's something that's worth clarifying, that there's different definitions of belief that have been used. So going forward, I'm going to assume that the beliefs that she's referring to are political
Worldviews.
belief, ethical beliefs, worldviews, something more substantial than oh, I don't think that I'm gonna like Rings of Power, even though
Well,
I haven't watched
well, hold
anything
on,
about it.
because the small beliefs are the building blocks to the large ones. So I mean, they're not mutually exclusive.
Right, but she said beliefs don't just pop up. They come from, you inherit them. And I can look at a fruit and decide whether or not I think it looks tasty without any sort of external uh inherited.
Social,
Yeah.
or
To
either
give her the
social
benefit of the
or
doubt, she probably means that your beliefs are influenced by other things.
But
To give
I
her
well,
don't
the
think
she's
my
she's
belief
supposed.
of
good faith interpretation.
Well, she's specifically talking about worldview here because she's talking
Yeah.
about social uh,
products.
osmosis. In that case, you're talking about the belief of your parents will be handed down to the child, or at least um, affect the child in their in the raising of the child, because children don't necessarily adopt the beliefs of their parents, but the beliefs of the parents do have some effect on the child, whether they push against it or they pull toward it.
Mhm.
Um, and then the same thing goes with what are the stories that you're hearing? What is the society that you live in? Do you live in the ghetto? Do you live in suburbia? Do you live in an African village? Those sorts of things will also
Which
determine
will
your worldview.
and they will influence your greater beliefs down the line. Different things to different extents, but even something as small as your taste in fruit may determine your belief in the goodness of fruit as a whole down the line if you run into but too many bad fruits that you don't like.
And to be fair to her, it does go into the smaller things, because I can assure you, Teddy, that you and I would not eat the food in India.
Oh, definitely
Uh,
not. I can't say
but
what kind of food that is on here.
the,
I would eat some
those who,
Indian food. I would not eat food from a street market in India. Correct.
but the people in India would eat the food that is made there, and they have no problem with it.
They all took the iron gut perk that allows them to survive any sort of food.
See, but uh, we grew up in different societies where that sort of food is either deemed unacceptable or acceptable. So there could be a society that would see a an overripened fruit, what we might consider to be on the verge of rotting, as, oh, that is the acceptable way
Yeah.
to eat the fruit.
Well, I mean, I guess that's fair because I know there's some places that eat bananas when they're very, very green, and so when they're yellow, the way that I eat
Mhm.
them, um, they would consider it past it's no longer good,
Hmm.
past its ripe time. So yeah, that's fair.
Cyclists are annoying and entitled because they're always swerving in and out of lanes. The average person in Münster,
True.
Germany believes that cyclists are, wait, what's a cyclist? Isn't that just a normal person? Our words, our phrases, our forms and processes and modes
Maybe
of
that's the
thought are
problem with
common
Germany.
property. Thus, we must cultivate a world that is conducive to producing the right beliefs. It's not just academics or politicians that have a duty to hold the right beliefs. We all participate in the flow of ideas. No one is a product of their own thoughts. Belief is not ours for ourselves, but for humanity. I can hear the
This is
objectors
also
at
the
the gate,
basis for
so let me
indoctrination.
address them. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. They are worried that evidentialism defines sufficient insufficient evidence too strictly. Evidentialism would seem to require us to give up beliefs on more controversial matters. In fact, many moral or political beliefs cannot be settled in the way that evidentialism seems to require. You can always find conflicting evidence on what you believe. Requiring evidence has also historically been weaponized against marginalized knowledge. Recording evidence is often an institutional practice, whether done by the government, museums, or colleges. This disadvantages people who have been excluded from such institutions. Indigenous communities in Canada face a constant battle for legal rights. Because Indigenous activity prior to British contact is hard to prove with evidence in court. As a result, Indigenous beliefs about how we should relate to the land are still doubted. For a long time, sexual assault cases required elaborate evidence about consent, but consent is rarely recorded, nor does it appear in one concrete form. This evidentiary standard contributed to victims of sexual assault being disbelieved.
I'm going to suggest.
And it also in today's culture, it goes in the other direction as
Yes.
well.
Sure does.
Let us assume good faith here because she's definitely explaining why she thinks that way, and to an extent we all know as adults that this does happen. It's just nowadays it is weaponized from the people claiming to be victims.
How old is this video?
It's a couple years old, I think.
1 month ago.
Oh, really? I thought it was much older than that because her channel's fairly old.
Okay.
I never
The
look at it.
reason why I asked is because the choices of example that she gave has
Yes, it does read
definitely,
woke,
yes.
but that does not
I wasn't
necessarily.
going to say
I'll say it.
woke, but it definitely leans liberal.
Yes, but it does not. It does not automatically lean wrong. They were
No, 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 no,
they were
no.
plenty
Uh,
vague enough without like citing. Like if she quoted Amber Heard as a victim, we'd all know what that meant. But
well, I would disagree with the term of vague. They were general and eh,
they were broad.
eh, I almost want to say universal, but no, that's not the right word.
Can we agree that
Almost
they're not
universal.
inherently wrong on their face?
They're not inherently wrong. That is very true. They are very directed in a specific way,
Yes.
but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're false.
I will
Um,
say the second example aside, because I know that's a contentious one, but like the indigenous point she made, I can
mhm,
actually get behind that a little bit because, like, when you think about the constant battles that natives here fight for their reservations, when things like states and federal principalities decide to set their eyes on things that are reserved for them, it's not unheard of for them to go through legal battles. Same thing with their rights. There was a incident not that long ago. I think it was within like the last 6 months of a Native American who was the first one to graduate from college, and she had an eagle feather in her hair and a member of the college board came across and took it away from her, which one, that's a felony. You just touched an eagle feather, which is something reserved specifically for government mandated researchers as well as that particular certain native tribes as part of their traditions. But also that's very disrespectful for them as an indigenous person as a whole. So I mean I can see how not understanding certain cultures and certain beliefs can lead to these conflicts.
mhm. Okay, so I'm trying to recall what brought about this again.
So this was
Going back.
her going through some people's uh, qualms with evidentialism. She's talking about
Right.
the issues with it, in that you can't
Much
always
evidence
have
is
the
enough
evidence.
evidence.
Yeah, there's evidence to the contrary of things. So if you have to have things with overwhelming evidence, and there's evidence going both ways, that means you can't have a belief at all. And then she was
Right.
talking about the native tribes and how they didn't have stuff recorded in the same
Hmm.
way we do, so they didn't have evidence, so to speak, about how they interact with the land and how it was used. Um,
Right.
yeah.
Okay, so now she's going into what I was discussing a little bit earlier,
Mhm.
like at the beginning of the video of testimony. being evidence.
Secondly, evidentialism does say we can believe things beyond what we've personally experienced, either through testimony or inference. We can rely on the testimony of others if we have reasonable grounds for trusting their accuracy, they are honestly trying to be truthful, they are someone who had opportunities to gain knowledge in this matter, and they have good judgment by properly using their opportunities to come to conclusions. So if you have a chemistry question, go ask a chemist. It would be unethical to trust some anonymous Redditor instead. If their reply has 54 upvotes, though, that's reliable testimony in my books. We can also make assumptions based on the uniformity of nature, the assumption that the future will be like the past.
Appeal to
Besides
authority,
miracles,
basically.
it's okay to believe things based on inferences from past experiences. If I once put a towel on a hot stovetop and it caught on fire, it's permissible to believe that the same will happen again. Yes, I actually did
wait,
that.
pause.
Now,
Does this mean that it is permissible to believe that a ship that has set sail and come back safely over and over again will continue
We'll
to
do
do
so again.
Yeah.
But we've already discussed why that is a bad idea, which is a argument against evidentialism.
Well,
But
no,
she's
no, no,
saying
no,
that
no,
it is
no.
allowed under evidentialism.
But again,
The problem
it's
is that she never brought up the evidences that the ship wasn't going to make it. We were given very limited information in the
yeah,
analogy, and we've all agreed that it's a poor analogy. So we're not going to bring that up
yeah.
again.
Yes, we will.
All
You know
right,
that's not
sorry,
gonna hold.
sorry. I shouldn't have even brought it up. I just thought it was a weird for her to
Yeah,
say that it's allowed here when she kind of her analogy mocked that kind of thinking at the beginning.
I think she's doing great in this video. Nobody's perfect. All right.
But
I
we can all
admit there
strive to
is
be.
something that my evidentialist buddy W.K. Clifford did not address. But that's okay, he didn't have the pit back in the 19th century. As I was watching The Pit, though, a show set in a Pittsburgh emergency room, I had a question arise in my mind. Recall the rule consequentialist way of framing evidentialism. As a general rule, prohibiting beliefs without evidence leads to the best consequences. Therefore, it is always wrong to believe without evidence, even if it's sometimes harmless. But even if all beliefs with insufficient evidence have bad consequences, maybe it's okay to still hold those beliefs? Our actions have complex effects on the world. Sometimes good and bad consequences result from our beliefs. And sometimes it's not clear if more good or bad will result. The Pit shows how medical staff regularly have to hold beliefs that lead to bad consequences. In the first season, Dr. Robbie and Dr. McKay go back and forth on whether they should call the police on this guy, David, who might be an incel-type school shooter. In other words, the doctors are trying to decide what to believe about David. Here is the evidence before them. David brings his mom, Teresa, to the ER because she is vomiting uncontrollably. Once Teresa is treated, she tells Robbie that she found a list of girls' names in David's notebook who he wanted to eliminate. She was worried about him hurting the girls in his notebook, but he recently turned 18, so she couldn't force him to receive medical help. As a result, she purposely made herself vomit so that David would come to the hospital with her. She says that he's been really struggling with mental health since his dad died. When the doctor asks David questions about his mom's well-being, he appears disinterested. When the hospital's social worker tries to talk to David, he gets agitated and runs off. His mom tries to reach him repeatedly, but he doesn't respond. Is this enough evidence for you to ethically believe that David will harm others?
So there is supporting evidence, but there is no quote unquote smoking gun. It is all circumstantial up to that point.
It's interesting that the question though is it evidence that he will do something, which
Is it
kind of
evidence that he
implies
will?
that
He
it's
will
set
up to
in
that.
stone that he will.
Oh, well, the question is if he will harm others, and I don't think any of the evidence points to actual harmful behavior.
Immediate. It certainly, I will say that it is on its face looking like it, but nothing is like a metaphorical smoking gun that says, this bad thing will happen at this place where kids go on this day to these girls. There is no like superior evidence that is like locked in that this is going to happen and this is what he'll do.
Well,
It's all just lightly supporting the idea that it could be.
yes, like the evidence shows that, like, if we were just determining, is this young man um, a social outcast, and does uh, yeah, that's a very tough question because you then have to think of, okay, social outcast who does have a list of names, um, and very odd behavior, which means that the behavior is hard to predict. But that's simply a question of unknowns,
Yeah. I
and
mean,
trying to control the unknowns.
let's look at it from the requirements that they set at the beginning, right? Regardless of the outcome of the action, you once you have taken an action, it cannot come back. So whether they choose to go to the police or not, that is set in stone, and that is whatever happens afterwards, regardless of the result. Do they have enough supporting evidence to justify them doing it? Is the evidence in its entirety enough for them to believe that he is a dangerous person? I would argue no.
I would
It's enough
argue
to
no as well.
suspect. It's enough to suspect, but further research needed.
I would agree. Um,
In which case,
because
the situation that she described, where they tried to get him to talk to a like a counselor, or I don't remember the exact term that she used for
A
the
social worker.
person, a social worker, to talk to a social worker rather than going straight to the police is probably a good action to
Yeah,
take. I
I would
think there's
actually say that's fair.
certainly
I think
evidence
there
that he
was.
could benefit from having some help.
I absolutely agree with that. There was enough evidence to show that he needed help, but not enough evidence to show that he was a threat.
Yeah.
Correct. Yep,
Well,
I agree.
let's say that there was. Let's say that hypothetically, this kid is in a bad place and all this other stuff, and you did have enough evidence to suspect that he could harm someone. Let's say they found his I'm dangerous manifesto.
Hmm.
Would you take that immediately to the police? Let's not say that it says he's going to take a GUN to a place with yellow buses. Let's just assume that it is indicative that he may do harm. Would that in itself be enough reason to justify going to the police, or would that
I
still
think so.
warrant the social worker,
I think it's enough to bring the police in.
even without the specificness of it?
It's a depend. It's hard to say on uh, a
Yeah.
hypothetical without actual specifics of what this evidence is and what it says. Um, but
As far
if
as
it does clearly indicate that he is going to inflict harm on others, then sure,
Mhm.
yep.
Okay.
Bring it to the police, and that does not necessarily mean that the police are within their right to arrest him. That's simply just turning it over to the authorities, that it's their job to they're better equipped to handle that sort of evidence and to work through it and to determine more concretely whether or not some action needs to be taken.
right, they are at a higher authority to engage with the ethical and moral parameters of this situation than the mother is, let's
Oh,
say.
certainly. But the same could be said for the social worker as well. Wouldn't
Uh,
he, but wouldn't he
the
also be a better person to determine whether or not the police was warranted? Because isn't he the next step up in escalation? Wouldn't he have the better job? If we're
because
going through this authority knows better kind of mentality that comes with this line of thinking? So
Well,
wouldn't the next person up in authority be the better judge?
I would say that the police are the better authority because we are talking now about a threat, not simply a mental condition or a social condition.
Okay. I mean, listen, I agree with you, but following this line of logic, because it's very much based in appeals to authority.
Hmm.
So it's kind of like almost like a chain of command in the logic. If we're
Right.
following the train of thought, if bad thing is going to happen, the next step is to go to the next person up in authority. And then logically following that, if they can't handle it, they should go to the next person up in authority and so on. The social worker goes to the police goes to the state troopers go to the FBI goes to DHS or whoever's above them.
Well, and as I was saying, like it really is determined by
I know I'm
uh,
following this logic to a fault, but just the extremity of it, you know?
Uh, yeah, and what I'm talking about is like where does the evidence lead as
Yeah.
far as the action base? If the evidence is only sufficient enough for a social worker to get involved, then we would
Yeah.
go to the social worker. If it is escalated to a threat of violence, then it would be law enforcement.
Yeah.
Having
It's
not seen
almost
the show and only seeing the descriptions that she's given, I honestly find it kind of difficult to trust what's coming out of the mom's mouth. That she's a good source of information. She's already harmed herself to some extent, forcing herself to throw up to go to the hospital, saying that
yeah.
it's for her son to get her son there. But she's also been through emotional turmoil with the loss of her husband, presumably, since that was her son's father, saying that he hasn't been himself since his father died. So I think that there's some reason to think that she might not be the most trustworthy source as well.
Yeah, that there could be potential for that. But given that uh Olivia here is arguing in good faith, which I don't think we have any reason to think she's not like those two idiots from the last episode. We,
Oh
we should think,
god.
but like genuinely, right?
They should
She's
rename
giving,
their podcast the Hags Cast. I think
we
it would
should,
do numbers.
but I think when she gives these examples, we should always assume that she's doing so in good faith and trying to do so in like an accurate a manner as she can, because
Oh
she's
sure.
obviously not trying to deceive anyone like the last two were, even though they're not smart enough to. So we should assume that what she says in these examples are true on their face, unless she specifies otherwise.
Well, I mean, she listed off out the evidence being that the
Yeah.
mother had given this information, and she was asking if it was enough evidence to go to the police. And I'm just stating that in that situation, I don't know that I would trust the mom to be a unbiased narrator, that she a trustworthy narrator.
You see, viewers, that's the difference between arguing in good faith and bad faith. When you argue in good faith, even I give you the benefit of the doubt.
Oh my god.
Crazy, I know.
Okay, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit just
Yeah,
so
go
we
ahead.
can hear what she discusses on pragmatism. But I think we won't be able to get to all of it, I fear.
These videos are very dense given what they are.
Talk about next. Suppose you consider all the arguments for and against religion. You read every book on religion, attend lectures from religion professors, you watch every shitty video essay made by 20-year-olds on religion. You even learn new languages to read the primary religious texts. And in the end, you're like, shoot, I don't have clear evidence for any position. If evidentialism is true, then the ethical thing to do is to withhold judgment and remain agnostic. It would be unethical to believe that religion is true or false. This reveals evidentialism's biggest flaw. Evidentialism does not track how human psychology actually works. Humans cannot just change our opinions at will by intellectually weighing evidence. Can we, just by willing it, believe that Abraham Lincoln's existence is a myth and that the portraits of him in McClure's magazine are all of someone else? Can we, by any
I mean, I can. Just answering the question, I can.
Yeah.
I
Abraham
don't know
Lincoln was
that I
taken
could.
today.
I don't know that I could actually force myself to believe that.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
I'm fairly certain that I could, because like I already have the worldview that history is faith based anyway, and we are just simply trusting the sources that are telling
oh,
us what history was.
yeah, that's a perfectly reasonable take to have.
So yeah, the answer is yes.
Even I won't
or
argue
by
that
any
one.
strength of wish that it were true, believe ourselves well and about when we are roaring with rheumatism in bed, or feel certain that the sum of the two $1 bills in our pocket must be $100?
That's a little bit harder.
Oh, I think people in America think that the money in their pocket is much more than it is all the time.
Listen,
People
I
are
have
always
stretched
Fair,
into a
overspending.
dollar many times.
fair, and some people don't know just how sickly that they are, um, given their weight or whatnot, um,
So
and think
specifically,
themselves healthy.
she hasn't broken this down yet, but I'm going to give my 2 cents on what I think she's talking about. I have not seen this far into the video. Uh, to be fair, I
Hmm.
think because she specifically mentioned willpower, and then she mentioned the ability to get up with rheumatism and walk around even though you're bedridden, and also or feel certain that the sum of the two $1 bills in our pockets must be $100. Don't think that she means this in a literal sense. I think that she's talking about like force of will and the ability to make things happen. I don't think particularly this one, the $1 bills in our pocket must be $100. I can't take this statement literally, at least
Well,
not on its face. I have to assume that she's gonna context that this must be like a with $2 you can make 100 with the right decisions kind of thing, especially being she's talking about pragmatism.
well, with the very first question, can you simply will that everything that you know about Abraham Lincoln and his history is merely a myth?
I think absolutely.
Yes, I think so. So this is talking about placing your making belief into something of a reality.
You
Um,
know, we have a name for that this day, and you're gonna hate it. This bitch be manifesting.
wow. Wow.
That's obviously me being a little over the top, but to a more like logical extent, even though I hate the word manifesting now, that is kind of what she's talking about. But the difference is that I think this will also include taking the next necessary actions to turn those wants into achieved goals.
It's putting yourself in a mind frame where um, you are uh, more proactive
Yes.
in reality. And when you are more proactive in reality, typically that will, um, I'm not using that word, that will typically
Manifest.
produce, no, that will typically produce more good outcomes.
Yeah, I can agree with that. And I'm not familiar with pragmatism, but just going off the name, is when I think of something being pragmatic, I think of it being as like reasonable at the time. Like it is the reasonable and understandable decision to make and the like right thing to do, not as a moral whole, but like the right thing to do in the moment.
I think of pragmatism as it's not good nor bad. It's what
It's a very
is.
neutral term.
Yes.
I think
In
opportune would
fact,
be a good word for it. The opportune thing to do.
Mm, Not even that. Pragmatism is simply the acknowledgement of what is.
Okay, I'll take your word
most
for
of
it.
us don't know why we believe the things we believe. Here in this room, all of us believe in molecules and the conservation of energy, in democracy and necessary progress. Most people don't know why we believe in these things.
Not all of us
We just
that
recite
believe
a
in
few
democracy.
arguments that others have told us. Evidentialism dogs on faith-based beliefs when, ironically, many beliefs are based in some faith in the status quo. I suspect then that the evidentialist doesn't believe in evidentialism because it's the more rational theory. Rather, the evidentialist is scared of being wrong. As beings that can know things, humans typically have two duties. First, to know the truth, and second, to avoid error. These might sound like two ways of saying the same thing, but really they are distinct duties. The easiest way to avoid error is to believe nothing. You miss 100% of the errors you don't make. The easiest way to know truth, however, is to believe everything.
Mm. No. And I would
Well,
change the definition or change the requirements.
hold on.
Um,
Let's assume that her definition of truth doesn't equal yours, because for her to say that, it can't.
well, and that's why I would. Sorry, the dog.
No, you're good, brother.
Okay. But that's why I would say that um, instead of to know the truth, it would be to seek the truth.
But if you just agree that everything is true, then you will always know the truth, whether you're right or wrong. Like she says right there, you'll believe many falsehoods, which is also true if you believe anything is true. She could say you won't believe many falsehoods, also true if you believe everything is true. I think what she's getting at is the extremity of the statement, assuming that truth is like, if it is true, it is like something I know, I think is what she's trying to imply here. If you
Well,
just
the
know
second
everything
part
there
is
is
to avoid error.
yes,
And uh,
I think
because because I believe that truth is actually a very narrow lens. By
yes.
saying everything is true, you are actually introducing more error than you
But
are truth.
you're right,
let
but you
let her
qualified
keep
it with
going
"I
though,
believe,"
because I think
and that's the difference.
she acknowledges that this doesn't avoid error. I think it's a logical thing that she's saying. Like, yeah, if you believe it, if there's hypothetically there's 10 things that are true in the world. Obviously, we can't put a number on the number of things that are true.
Yeah,
But if there's 10 things that are true out of 100, and you believe everything, you believe all of the true things. You just also believe all of the untrue things. So believing
Mhm.
everything, it will get you all of the truth, but it doesn't do the avoiding error part. I think
yeah.
that's what
Mhm.
she's about to get to. I think we
Okay.
just cut
And
her off
she did say
right before.
if by doing nothing, you avoid 100% of the errors you don't make.
Sure, you'll believe many falsehoods, but you'll also catch the truths along the way. We need a balance of both duties, avoid error and know truth. But unfortunately, evidentialism has an avoidant attachment style. Pragmatism agrees that
Man,
when
girl.
beliefs can be settled by evidence, we should do that. But pragmatism also recognizes cases where appealing to evidence doesn't work. Like, have you ever tried to figure out how someone feels about you? You notice that they compliment you every day, and they took you out to lunch recently too. But they also are generally a friendly person. You find yourself wondering, do they like me? The variety of ways that people experience attraction already makes it difficult to settle this belief on
Scott Pilgrim
evidence
versus the
alone.
World,
Some people flirt by giving you extra
great
attention,
movie.
others can't stand being
And things I
around a
hate about you.
crush. To make matters more complicated, How we feel about someone is a dynamic truth that changes as we interact with the other. People frequently have to believe, without clear evidence, that the person they desire also desires them back. For it is this faith in the other's desire that brings the desire about. It is very common for person A to like person B first, then through A signaling their desire for B, this creates a reciprocal desire in B. But imagine if instead A was like, I shouldn't believe anything about how B feels about me. I don't have any objective evidence that B likes me for sure. I'm just gonna stand back and keep to myself.
She's 100%
Hmm.
correct there, though. That, like, I think we've all been in that situation before where we think someone may or may not be into us, and we're unsure if we should act because we can't tell if we're reading it right.
I, I think this is where I have an issue with the word evidence
Well, I
that
think in
she's
this one, she's
using.
speaking specifically of the lack of evidence
Well, she
because,
said objective
yeah,
evidence. Well,
but
what
that's the
about
thing.
subjective evidence? What if you simply took, oh, the smile, the willingness to stick around. Those are all evidence based. It's
But they're
not
not definitive,
necessarily,
which I think is what she's kind of getting at.
well, that's where I would say they are not proof. Going back to terminologies, back to definitions. So
Ew.
evidentialism would still work here. It's just not proof.
I don't think it would because it's not enough, right? Like
Well,
I know there's no
that
hard line standard listed in evidentialism of what is the right amount of proof, which she said before is a problem with evidentialism. It doesn't tell you how much is enough.
well,
But
see,
if all you have is hold on, if all you have is subjective evidence, then you don't have a fact or knowledge, you have an opinion. You have, I think this is happening, but I don't know for sure. I can't lock it in.
okay, you were so wiggly with these things.
You
Ugh.
you get exactly what I'm saying. Come on, Gleeman.
No, no,
If
no, no, no. You were changing things around so wishy-washy.
I am not
Okay.
trying to, if the evidence is all subjective, right? If
So
it is
the
all
evidence that I presented you was they smiled at me, they're willing
yes,
to hang around me.
yes,
That is fairly sufficient evidence to say they like me.
that is sufficient evidence to say that they have done these things, but you cannot just say, okay, they are
So
intending to show they
you
like me.
would not come to a conclusion that they are smiling
Fuck
at you
no.
and that they are hanging around you, giving their time to you, that they like you? Just
Dude,
that they like you.
do you know how many times I've been talking to my wife about some experience that I had like 10 or 15 years before we met, and only in talking about it with her at the time I'm like, "Oh, I think that person was actually into me. I did not
Yeah.
realize
And
it
think about all the
happens."
times where if you had assumed it, that's the people that you assume were into you. Think about all the times where you could have thought maybe they were, but they weren't. It's subjective without further evidence. Yes, it is supporting, but it doesn't lock it down as a hard fact. It is,
But she's saying
frankly, it's
that
anecdotal, honestly.
that
It could be true, but
evidentialism would prevent us from ever going
yes,
ever
because it's
further
yes,
because
because
there's not
not enough
enough
of it.
evidence.
That's
I
correct.
completely disagree. I completely disagree.
There's
That's
enough
totally
evidence to point
false.
you in the direction to make you maybe think that it might be a possibility.
Where
There's
you
not enough evidence.
pursue more evidence.
Yes, and more evidence could come along, but that alone, the things you listed, are not enough evidence for me to go like, "Oh yeah, that person's into me. They smiled at me when I talked and I made that joke." I
But
could have
it's
just
enough
made a funny
evidence for
joke
you
that
to
one time.
it's enough evidence for you to pursue something further. You test it.
Yes, but just going off of what she's saying, right? The difference between the previous category the evidentialism and whatever this one was called, pragmatism.
Pragmatism.
Yes, is the evidentialism. You would have to get more evidence. From what I'm understanding so far, she's not totally finished her point. With pragmatism, it's the bulk of what you have, and you just kind of go on it. It's vibe evidence. I know that's a terrible way to describe it, but it seems really accurate to me. It's what you think is correct and what you feel is right to do. It's almost like driving on instinct. It is the pragmatic thing to do given the information you have and the amount of information you have, not a set number of I have to have X amount of information, otherwise it's worthless,
See,
which they
but
don't
that's the
even tell you
thing.
what X is.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying is like with evidentialism, it would simply be a case of I have enough evidence to go this further into testing of the let's call it the hypothesis.
Yeah.
And like the more that you gain, that's more evidence of either right or wrong in the hypothesis, and
This
you're
I
just
think is better.
gathering more evidence.
I actually, so far, I actually like this better because yes, you can always gather more evidence, but you are never guaranteed for more evidence to come forward. And sometimes you have to just go with what you got. And this, from what I can tell so far, is at least somewhat accounting for it. But she's going to
I'll,
explain more.
I
I'll
This is
let
could
my
her
take so
explain more.
far.
I could be wrong, but I think we might be a little misunderstanding. Because she said she talked about the evidence, right? But then this last bit where she said um, someone wouldn't be able to act, it was person A. It was right after saying that person A
Hmm.
likes person B,
Yes.
and that they
Mhm.
have to believe that person B likes them back. And
Yes.
in showing that, that actually brings about person B liking them back. So I think person B is the one that has the evidence. They're seeing the evidence. So person A is the one that is smiling, is hanging out, is spending time with them. They're the one that is signaling things, and they're having to do that before the other person has signaled anything to them so that they can kind of test the waters. I think that's what she's saying. Labeling
Yes,
them as
but
A and B rather than giving them names or something for the hypothetical does make it a little more difficult.
in this case, though, is person A even contemplating?
Well, I think person
Um,
A is the one with the crush. They're just not sure if person B reciprocates. So they are the one, person A is the one with the lack of evidence about person B. So they have the crush and they are unsure if person B feels the same way. So it is them who has to like go off of their limited information.
but you could go from two prong, or you could have a person acting on two different beliefs. One is the belief that this person might like me,
Mhm.
therefore I'm going to act on that belief, or it's simply the belief of I like this person, therefore I'm going to engage them.
Well, if
Fair
if
enough.
the first one is the one that you're, I'm going to overcomplicate it.
God damn
You're
it.
right, Gleeman. Just going to make it more confusing.
Okay, thank you. And I don't know enough about like human psychology to know if her statement that one person liking another actually creates the reciprocal liking back that she's stating. Like person A likes person B, and doing so creates a reciprocal response.
I
I don't
mean,
know enough about human psychology to even know if that's true to
we
begin
we
with.
ha- we already know that unrequited love is a thing. So
Right.
just
Right.
just
And I
because
don't I don't think she would. maybe I'm putting words in her mouth, but I don't think she would say that it always does, but I guess has the potential to create that reciprocal
a
feeling.
reciprocal desire in B. But imagine if instead A was like, I shouldn't believe anything about how B feels about me. I don't have any objective evidence that B likes me for sure. I'm just gonna stand back and keep to myself. Sorry, but A is probably gonna get cucked. Friendship and love is a case where the desire for a certain kind of truth here brings about that special truth's existence, and where faith in a fact can help create the fact. That would be an insane logic which would say that faith running ahead of scientific evidence is the lowest kind of immorality. This brings me to the pragmatist position. It is
Yeah. Can we pause and can we go back to that statement, the first part, and then into the second part?
I just wanted to say that she was sorry, going back to what you guys were talking about, the part where she was saying, "Oh well, I don't know enough about him, so or her, whatever. I don't have enough evidence to believe this thing, so I'm just not going to do anything," which is again conflating belief with action. I don't have to believe that someone likes me. Like when I took which I guess is kind of the point with pragmatism here. But when I took the leap to ask out my now wife, I didn't know if she liked me. I had some potential evidence, but I don't know that I didn't know. Um, I don't know that I even believed that she liked me beyond a friend, but I still took that action because action and belief are not the same thing. You can act
They're
in a
not.
way that is not the same as your belief.
Yeah. I don't think she's saying specifically that has to be the case. And this is just me spitballing here. The desire for a certain kind of truth. So let's say, for example, Teddy, you and your wife, let's say that you guys weren't friends, but you were just casual acquaintances. The desire for a certain kind of truth here brings about that special truth's existence. I'm fairly certain that's what the last word was. So you and your wife were neutral parties. And then you she made a couple funny jokes and she kind of piqued your interest just a little bit. That little bit of interest is what would give you the incentive to interact with her more. And I know that we joked earlier about manifesting, but it's actually kind of a good word, but it doesn't appear out of nowhere. It is psychology and biology and all those other ologies thrown together. But because something piqued your interest, your behavior would change based on that interest now being acquired, which your change, she will recognize it and that will pique her interest. And now her behavior will change in response. And it becomes a self feeding loop. It's kind of like how people who exercise and exercise regularly, they exercise more and more and they start to like it more, even though they hate it when they first start. It just becomes a self feeding loop that as you do something and it feels better and it feels more natural, you will want to do it more to the point where it just becomes a thing that happens on its own. It's almost autonomous.
I don't know that I have much to say in response to that, to be honest.
Was it that stupid, or are you just not sure?
I would say that it is very niche, and I don't believe this is universal at all.
No, I wouldn't say it's universal. But I don't think it's entirely wrong either.
Well, that's the thing that this is, I guess, going back to what I was saying. I am not familiar enough with human psychology when it comes to, I haven't studied how people form their like romantic feelings with each other. So I wouldn't know, but even if this does apply to that, I certainly don't think that you could take this, the desire for a certain kind of truth brings about that special truth's existence being with in general. It's
And this is where I would say that we are entirely in a very gray area. I don't like gray areas, but we are in a very gray area because in both cases, she is citing people who have used a defined word, which is truth, and have not defined how they see truth. Because
See,
we've already said that uh, Rhino and I have very different
yeah,
opinions of what truth is,
but
and
let's look at
these
what's said.
two quotes, or
Mhm.
these two men that she is quoting, they could also have very different
They could,
definitions of what truth is.
they could, but that would at the same time, we do have to make assumptions based on context as well as common usage. Otherwise, any time that we look at a quote from anyone, no matter how long, they would have to go through and define every particular word in it. Like, what do they mean
Yes.
by brings? When he says brings, what does bring mean? What is existence? Because then you're wow, I know you would love that. Then you're really overcomplicating it. It's fine to ask somebody what they means, but this is also not a person that we can have a conversation with immediately, so we do have to make some assumptions.
Okay, so I would agree with you insofar as we don't necessarily have to break down every single word, but the linchpin word in both of these statements is
It's true.
truth.
Yes, I agree with
And
you there.
so we would need the proper definitions that they are using in order to
At
facilitate
least the intended one.
it, I say proper definition, the intended definition of the word that they are using, because the rest of the words, they aren't necessarily. We don't have to hinge on those.
I don't
Truth
think we
is essential,
necessarily
though.
need to hinge on truth as long as we're like you know, just going by what's said and making some
Well,
light
the
we're gonna make
desire
some
of
light
a
assumptions.
certain okay, so the desire for a certain kind of truth in
Yes.
your definition would
Here
mean the desire for a very what would the term be? Temporal truth
well, let's
here brings about a special temporal truth's existence. That
let's
could be true in a case.
let's go ahead and just do an exercise with me. Remove the word
Hmm.
truth altogether. The desire
Hmm.
for a certain kind of blank here, so in that context, brings about that special blank's existence. So the desire for a
candy,
certain kind of thing
candy,
brings about that special thing's
candy.
existence. Yes, it could be candy. So
That's not
removing the
necessarily true, though.
removing the complication of the word and the argument over definition, though, we can look at the intent of the sentence. So the desire for a certain kind of thing here can bring about that special thing's existence. So the way I interpret that is the desire for a thing can lead to the events that cause that thing to come into existence. Like again, we joked about manifesting. That's not how I actually mean it. But by you wanting something, it will lead you into the actions to make that thing true down the road.
See, but I would say that the truthfulness of this statement very much depends on what truth means in this case. If the person saying it meant truth as I know it to be, which is immutable, then no kind of desire changes what truth is and does not bring it into existence because truth
So
always
then your
exists.
definition clearly does not fit this sentence and can't be applied. Your definition is outside the intent of the speaker.
I don't know that though.
We do by your definition. Your definition does not fit the sentence that was just spoken. The desire for a certain kind of immutable, possible thing that can never be changed here brings about that special, immutable, unchangeable thing
Things
existence.
existence.
So this is a quote from the old guy, right? So it's not necessarily directly
The
relating
different old
to
guy.
right,
Yes.
but it's not directly relating to the example she was using of person A and person B, right?
No, not
Um,
directly.
so the fact that this quote starts partway through the sentence, as
Yeah, not
noted by
ideal.
the fact that it doesn't have a capital T for the, we're starting partway through.
Yeah.
And it says the desire for a certain kind of truth here brings about that special truth's existence, means that when it says here, to me that implies that it's talking about a specific situation or a specific example that was quoted before this, and we don't have that example. We don't have
That's
what was
true. We could
being
be missing a major piece of
referenced.
context.
That is
This is
true.
incredibly out of context that she's pulling this
Yes.
quote.
Hmm.
And also
And
the fact that Rhino doesn't want to get into the deep definitions of each word and the etymologies of them all shows to me that he has not spent a lot of time in Bible studies. Oh man,
No, I have not.
the amount of time we pull out a verse, we spend an hour going through one verse. Oh, but what does it say in this version? And what does it say in this version? How is it translated here? And oh, well, let's go to the root word and find out like what it was in the original text, and like then where was
hermeneu-
that same,
hermeneutics.
yeah, where
Yeah.
was that word used elsewhere in the
I have
Bible to make
I
sure
have
we're
no
using the
qualms.
right term?
I have no qualms about getting into the meanings of words and like where they come from and how they're used specifically in this particular thing. But I also try to look because people don't talk that way. And somebody took the time to say and or write this.
I
So
think
I try to look at intent as a whole. That's all.
I get that. I think these quotes from these like thesis style papers that were
Yeah.
written by these guys, though, they probably took great care and intent with their
Oh,
words.
sure, no doubt.
So even though people might not talk that way when we're just having a casual conversation, I don't think these are from casual conversations. Anyways,
Its
my
existence
belief is
and where
that her having the word here there in that sentence
Yeah.
means that we are
Implies a
missing
previous scenario.
a huge bit of context that we couldn't
Right.
know.
faith in a fact can help create the fact, that would be an insane logic, which would say that faith running ahead of scientific evidence is the lowest kind of immorality.
And I
Faith
would
running
go
ahead
back
of scientific evidence is the lowest kind of
Truth's
morality.
existence, and where faith in a fact can help create the fact.
and where faith in a fact can help
Yes,
create the fact. So
I
I
can get
think
behind that.
that supports what I was saying of a fact being something that is immutable.
I disagree entirely. I think it supports what I was saying that by the
Good
belief in
God.
a thing and help create the thing, right? I mean, honestly, we both could be right given the context of this statement. Both, it
If I
doesn't say
believe
specifically that the fact didn't pre-exist, so we both could be right. But the faith in it can help bringing about the fact itself, as in the knowledge of it or the existence of the factual thing.
if I believe that on July 27th at, I don't know, what time is it there for you guys, like 2 in the morning? Uh,
Sure.
that at 2 in the morning, which is now past,
Mhm.
if I firmly believe that at that time Rhino did a headstand, will that help create the fact that Rhino did a headstand at 2 in the morning
No,
on July
but
27th?
if you believe that on July 29th at 2 a.m., I will do a headstand, that could potentially influence me into doing one. I'm not saying it
Sure.
will. but it potentially could. I don't think that
But that's
this
an
applies
example at where
previously.
it's an example at where this is not a good universal where faith
No,
in a
no,
fact can
I
help
agree
create the
with that.
fact.
Yeah.
There's some things that it won't. Now, if I
For
had
me, then the
faith
headstand is also
that
not a fact.
a candy bar made out of moose meat would sell really well, um, then my faith in that might lead me to creating it and
Yes.
might test out that theory and
Yes.
might or that hypothesis. Um,
That I feel is more applicable than my handstand that already happened.
So we can agree that this needs to change to
Yeah.
might.
The well, I mean, can I think is applicable because can and might I think are pretty interchangeable here.
Can is a little bit more definitive, though.
Is it?
Yes.
I mean, you're the word guy, so I mean, I'll take your word for it. But I think we can agree that I think both me and Gleeman's take on this are both fine because I think at the end of the day, it leads to about the same conclusion that faith in a fact, whether that fact pre-existed or and was previously undiscovered, or is to be discovered, it can help lead to the creation of it, or if not creation, the knowledge of it, depending on how you want to read the term fact. I'm perfectly fine with this statement.
That would be an insane logic, which would say that faith running ahead of scientific evidence is the lowest kind of immorality. This brings me to the pragmatist position. It is rational to believe something without good evidence when the option is forced, live, and momentous. Let's define those terms. An option is a choice between two hypotheses when we're trying to decide whether to believe X or Y. There are several kinds of options. Options can be living or dead, which measures how real the possibility of a belief is. If I say to you, be a theosophist or a Kemetic, it's probably a dead option, because no one really participates in those beliefs anymore, even though technically you could be a theosophist. But if I say, be an atheist or be a Christian, this option is alive to you, even if just a little. Pragmatism has a general rule that humans disbelieve facts and theories that are no longer useful. So usually a hypothesis is dead when believing that thing serves no use anymore. 2. Options can be forced or avoidable. Forced options leave you with no alternative. Go outside with or without your umbrella is an avoidable option because you can just stay inside. But believe or don't believe in God is a forced option. There's nothing one can do but believe or not believe. Lastly, options can be momentous or trivial. Momentous options offer unique, high-stake opportunities that, when decided, will be very difficult, if not impossible, to reverse. Science is full of trivial options. A chemistry student finds a hypothesis live enough to spend a year verifying it. If the student's experiments prove inconclusive, no worries, we move on to another hypothesis. A momentous option, though, is like an artist deciding whether to sign a 10-year binding contract with a record label. You can't really get out of it once you sign, and whether you do or not will have a drastic impact on your life. Moreover, there's an urgency in belief formation. You only have a month to decide whether the contract will make your life better or not. And no matter how much you deliberate, you will never have settled evidence for something as unknown as your future artistic success. For pragmatists, a genuine option is one that is living, momentous, and forced. When we are confronted with a genuine option, it is ethical to
Are
believe
we all okay
whatever
with these
one wishes.
definitions?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay. I see no complaints here.
Yeah.
And she did specify them, which is helpful. Even if we did disagree, at least we know what she was going for.
Yeah.
I'm
Mhm.
I'm a little sad that this still means that it's unethical for me to believe that the fruit is not going to be good. Nothing is going, nothing in this video is going to make it ethical for me to have a belief in fruit.
Well,
Good grief.
But
given
seriously, based on those things, it's not momentous. I believe
actually, hold on, it would be trivial, but
it would be trivial.
if you believe, right, given this worldview, that the fruit could potentially be good, that gives you the opportunity to eat it under the assumption that it might be good So you will at least have an answer in the end. So I think this would apply to it, and you could at least find out your answer. And you'll be more open to the idea of enjoying that fruit once you eat it.
But I think Teddy is arguing from the basis of uh, evidentialism.
Oh yeah, in
Well, no,
evidentialism,
no,
yeah,
I'm
no
saying
hope.
that both of them. If I say don't I don't know much about that fruit, I don't want to eat it. I'm I'm going to believe that the fruit is bad. Both pragmatism and evidentialism are saying that that's not a correct ethical conclusion to come to because I don't have the evidence for it, so it fails the ethical or
The evidence
the
base.
evidence. Yep, and because I'm having a belief that is trivial
Trivial.
and
Well, I don't think it says you
and
can't have trivial. I think when they say trivial, they're talking about the outcomes, not specifically the belief itself. Like it
right,
doesn't
but
say you can't have a trivial. So while it would be a trivial outcome, you would actually be manifesting exactly what you want. If you think the fruit is bad and you don't want to eat bad fruit, so you don't, then you have manifested no bad fruit. You
right,
win.
but you saying option has to be living.
Yeah.
Has to be living or dead. I think it's a living option as to whether or not.
Yes.
Um, okay, so I
A
got that one.
genuine option has to be
Genuine option
living, momentous,
and
enforced.
forced. Forced. I think it's forced as to whether you are going to like it or not going to like it. In the same way, either a belief in God or not a belief in God. There's got to be some sort of choice there, right? But it's not a momentous one. There's nothing that's like propelling it forward, making it. Let me go back to her definition on that.
Uh,
The
Yep.
momentous was
I knew we'd get mileage out of this video.
the momentous was the one about whether or not it was something that you needed like essentially an expedient decision on, like the music artist deciding whether or not to sign on
Yeah.
um, with a record label.
Well, I mean, I don't think it would make it so that these things aren't like tenable in any way. I think it just wouldn't fall under this definition of genuine option. I don't know why they use the
Right.
term genuine, but I
So
think living is the obvious one because if it's anything not living, then it's certainly not genuine, right? Because it's not an option that's reasonable for you to take in any real circumstance, right? Momentous, that's where I'm running into a little bit of trouble because why does it have to be momentous? Me figuring out what I want for dinner, it does give me an option, right? It's just not a very momentous one. It's not life changing in any means.
well, and I
well,
think that's where genuine plays a role. Is that option means you have to make a choice.
Yes.
Genuine option means that the choice that you make has some impact.
well, what she said at the very beginning of it was that um, this brings me into the pragmatist position. It is rational to believe something without good evidence when the option is forced, live, and momentous. So, according to the pragmatist, this is the situation where it is acceptable to believe something without the proper evidence.
Oh,
So,
got you. Oh,
pragmatists are still, if so, because it's not momentous, because it's not something that I need to be really expediently making a decision on, then it means it's still
okay.
not good because I should just go and get the evidence.
Okay, gotcha. I see what you mean now.
So
Right.
And
my
you know what? I
belief
can't even
of
fault that logic because it's something so trivial that it doesn't hurt you to take the time to look and be like, hmm, let me at least smell the fruit and see what I think, you know?
so yep, I'm just sad that not even the pragmatists could save my ethics here.
I think the moral of the story is you gotta just try the fruit, dude.
I think the moral of the story is I'm unethical. That's what I'm learning.
You're a bad
When we are
person.
confronted with a genuine option, it is ethical to believe whatever one wishes. We simply cannot wait for complete evidence to arrive to inform our belief. Thus, in genuine options, we rely on.
Again, I'm with her,
I
and
can't
then
disagree with it.
she changes things. Ugh.
Well, hold on. If you look at the list, it makes sense that you would have to make a choice here, right?
So look how she changes the way she phrases it.
Okay.
Okay,
Maybe I
It is
missed it.
ethical to believe whatever one wishes. We simply cannot wait for complete evidence to.
for complete evidence. What does that
Yes.
mean? What
As
does
in,
that mean?
it means exactly what it sounds like complete definitive evidence. So
Def- uh,
hold on.
ha-
Let me give you an example. Take a breather, because I think I get what she's getting at. Given the like three labels that she gave us before, the living, momentous, and forced, right? Let's say that you were working on a contract and it's crunch time. It's either you take it or they're going to give it to a different bidder. Now, you don't have all of the evidence in the world to know that this contract is 100% completable by you in the time frame, although you believe it will be, and you know that there is a time frame window for you to make a decision, and it's a short time frame, and you know it is momentous, you know it would be a big deal, it is not trivial, and it would be a substantial amount of money if you get that contract and complete it, right? It could be life changing, or it could just be substantial for what you normally make. All of those things would qualify for what she's saying, as in you can't wait for every little piece of evidence to know whether you're going to be able to do it or not because of the time crunch involved. You have to just make a decision based on what you already have and what you think as a whole. There is no right or wrong answer, but an answer is needed.
But she's making it so that evidentialism means that you basically have to have proof.
No, no. Wait, evidentialism as the other one. This is pragmatism, correct?
Yes, she's
Yes,
making it
because
out to be that evidentialism requires you to have all of the evidence necessary to come to any sort of decision.
that's kind of true, but only because they lack the specificity of how much evidence is enough. They just say you need a substantial amount, whatever that may be. With this, it's saying when you are under pressure and a decision has to be made, work within your knowledge and make the best decision you can. I don't see anything inherently wrong with this statement, because I think we've all been in positions like that where we don't have all the information, but we just have to wing it and hope for the best. We have to do the best thing that seems like the best move for us at the time, despite lacking information. You can't sit around and wait for the perfect amount of total information.
And I would say that evidentialism doesn't disagree with that. It just says you work
Well,
with
with
the
evidentialism,
evidence that you have.
as stated, given like my example of the contract, you would always turn it down because you don't have enough evidence to support that you should take it.
Maybe
Or that
the
you would
evidence.
actually, what she had described would be that you wouldn't have a belief either way.
Oh
So
yeah, it would be immoral of
you
you to
would
think
be,
either way, but yeah, that's true. But
if you don't have enough evidence. Yeah.
yeah, but given this, it's a more in the moment alternative where you make the best decision you can at that moment. And otherwise, without that time crunch, then you take the time to gather as much evidence as you can until you have the near perfect decision, or at least as near as you can get it. Because then
Now,
that
I
takes away
think
the forced and momentous requirement away from it.
I do think that evidentialism, as defined by the man, and this goes back to his quote
Mhm.
specifically, that regardless of the outcomes, um,
Yes.
and this is where we would have to go into what he defines as a sufficient amount of
Yeah.
evidence, because in this particular case, what she's talking about, this scenario, I would say that, okay, given the evidence that I have, here's the judgment that I make. The the judgment is, so I'm saying that the evidence that I'm provided is sufficient for me to make a decision.
What if the evidence, let's look at this in a different way. What if you have to make a decision, right? It is a
Hmm.
momentous one. It is forced. You have to make this decision quickly, right? It is living, like it's an actual possible decision,
Hmm.
but there is no evidence, and yet you must decide. With the evidentialism or whatever it's called, you would be immoral and wrong for making any decision at all based on that. The fact that you even chose to make a decision under them circumstances makes you incorrect to begin with.
Well, and I think that's where Teddy and I were disagreeing with the very premise of evidentialism.
And we also have to think that given this has three separate factors that go into it, the living or dead, momentous or trivial, and the forced and chosen, I think it was, something like that. That gives you 16 different combination options for choices. It is a much bigger spread. Only in these three specific circumstances do you actually have a requirement to make a decision under this duress. This is a
Hmm.
use case. You know what I mean? Because if
Hmm.
it's dead, you don't have to make a decision at all. If it's trivial, it probably doesn't matter if you get it right or wrong, not in any major way. And if it's not forced, you can always choose not to do it. So in any one of those 16 total combination options, you have an out, except for this one. This is like back against the wall option, and this is the
It's
moral argument they're going for. This is when you have to make a choice, so you just do it.
sorry, got to nerd out. It's 8 options.
Is it eight,
It's
two,
8. Each one
and
has
then
two. It's essentially binary. Yeah, it's
two,
8.
four? Oh, you're right. It is eight. Sorry.
Um, I would have to say that uh,
Eight options is still a
the
lot to not be wrong most of the time on a moral scale. you know.
coming back to your question though, when is it ethical to believe without evidence?
Well, I would say under these circumstances that she just listed, if you have two options, right? The options are living. Let's just say two. It could be 10, but for realism, let's say do or don't. If it is a big decision, right? Like a huge decision, it could be life changing, business changing, it could greatly influence you in some way, and you are under a deadline, then you would have to make a decision. The decision could be not to do something. That's an option. But then you have to make a decision one way or another without evidence. And I don't think you're
I
wrong for choosing either way.
I'm
The
gonna
thing is,
complain about it again. Gosh darn it! I think there's a difference between
I was just about to say it, Teddy.
an
I was
action
just
between making a decision and believing it. Um,
she is talking about uh, the question is, when is it ethical to believe without evidence? Here she's describing when is it ethical to act without
Yes.
evidence.
Oh, I'm sorry. So when is it, are you asking me when is it ethical to believe without evidence?
Hmm.
Oh, always wing it. Go for broke.
Thank you,
Right
Live
on.
in the
I'm so
Rhino.
glad
matrix.
we
Thank
have
you
you
Everything
so
is
on this
much.
making gay.
podcast. I'm so glad you're here.
No, when it's ethical to believe without evidence, and this is just my opinion because when you're dealing with philosophy, there's usually not a lot of quote unquote correct answers, is when you personally feel it is reasonable to do so. Every person will have different tolerances, every person will have different tastes of what is and isn't right. You know, when is it okay to believe in gravity. Hell, people disagree on what gravity actually is. So we have evidence that it exists, but nobody knows what it actually is. So there are tons of different theories on what gravity itself is made of. It really just depends on the individual person, their taste. It could be a religious view, it could be a culinary view. What do you believe is the best food in the world?
I think that the scientists that believe different things about what gravity's made of
Mhm.
would take qualms with you equating that to believing something without evidence.
Well, we know gravity is a real thing, but what is the tangible thing that we can hold that we say that it is? We can say downward forces, but you can't pluck a downward force out of the air and show it to me. We can show the effects, but we can't show it.
Right. So
Right.
I'm just saying that they have
See,
reasons that they believe
Yes,
the
they
things that they
do,
believe,
but we'll say
evidence-based
insurmountable
reasons.
evidence. We'll say
Yeah,
we'll
they
say maximal evidence. Let's go to more opinion based things, right? Gleeman may
mhm.
like a veal parm. He is right in his belief that a veal parm is the best food in the world. He might like mussels fra diablo. It is of his opinion
what the
that
heck is that?
that's mussels in a hot spaghetti. It's delicious.
That sounds terrible.
Oh, it's amazing. But
I've never had
let
a mussel, but I cannot imagine it being good.
but let's say you assume that that is the most delicious thing in the world. That is your belief. Your evidence is you like it. Gleeman has the same evidence. He likes it. Is either one actually the best? No. You're going to run
Okay,
into when you're dealing with anything
but
to do
those
with
are
beliefs, you're going
then
to run
with
into these
evidence.
things.
I guess
Yes,
maybe I'm
conflicting evidence.
misunderstanding Gleeman's question because it was when is it ethical to believe without evidence? Does that mean do you mean without any evidence, like zero evidence at all?
Yeah, how
Or do
much
you
is
mean
without?
not enough evidence?
So this is the thing. This says without evidence. Without evidence.
Which to me implies no evidence.
It
And
would
I
have to mean no evidence whatsoever.
I think that the correct answer here is when you are not directly contradicted on it. I think it is up to the point of contradiction that you can't disprove.
See,
I
for
think that's the
me,
fairest take.
I I and this could show my bias in my worldview or whatnot,
Mhm.
but I cannot imagine a world where you do not have evidence of some sort for the belief that you choose to believe.
That is wild coming from a theist.
Why?
Okay, so you have the whole Jesus thing. I can get behind you and say Jesus was an actual person, the apostles were real people, all of
Hmm.
that. But the idea that you believe in an intangible God
Hmm.
who you cannot reach out, cannot touch, cannot see, there is no
Hmm.
physical attribute to it. You are believing based on and I'm not saying you're wrong for this, to be clear. You know where I stand on this sort of thing. But I don't see how you can square the circle of you saying that it is wrong to believe without evidence when you believe in
he
something
didn't.
all powerful without evidence.
He didn't say it's wrong to believe without evidence. He said he can't imagine a world where someone believes something without some sort of evidence, implying that there is there's some sort of evidence, something that is informing someone's views, someone's
And this
belief.
is where I would push back, Rhino. Are you talking about evidence or are you talking about proof?
Well, we did define them. Proof was the final say, correct? Is that what we
Yes.
landed on? Okay.
Yes.
And we said anecdotal evidence counts, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I will say that for the point of theism, that yes, there is anecdotal evidence that could lead someone to saying that it is a thing.
And I
But
would say there's even circumstantial and Oh gosh. Oh,
Look, I'm giving you an inch. Don't take a mile on me now.
well, I'm saying
I
that
know. I know.
circumstantial evidence
Yeah.
would dictate that for me, the fact that we have order in this universe when
I, I
what we
think that
see, scientifically speaking, is the law of entropy. Everything is going into chaos. The very fact that we have order would mean that some mind must have put it into order.
I think if I a good example of something without evidence. I don't think anything can ever be like said without evidence and taken seriously, like with zero evidence in its entirety. Because I think saying something without evidence, including your own personal anecdote as evidence, would just outright be a lie. Because even if you are the one saying the anecdote, you know it to be true, but you would also know whether you're lying. So if you are saying something without evidence and you know it to be true, that's just outright a lie. That's not a statement of fact in any means. I think it goes back to it really depends on if the evidence conflicts or not, because going back to the milk from the very beginning, one
Hmm.
side says A, one side says B, and it's inconclusive. If you believe in appeal to authority, then you're going to believe A because the authorities say that pasteurized milk is best for you. But if you don't
Hmm.
trust that authority, then you have to believe in B, or at least you would logically lean towards B.
Hmm.
So I don't think that there's like a canned answer that this falls into because it really depends on each person and their perspective. No two
Well,
people are going to agree on every single thing. It can't happen.
and that's why I said that I don't think there's any. I cannot conceive of a world where there's zero evidence for
Yeah.
anyone to latch onto uh, in order to make a belief.
Yeah. That's the part I'm struggling with. And I don't say I entirely disagree with her statement because let's be honest, it is a video title. It's supposed to be a little clickbaity and a little click here to hear me talk about this.
Right.
We may be just over analyzing the shit out of it. You know what I mean? And she is talking
Well,
about her thoughts and the points on it.
and this is simply going between
Yeah.
two
Two separate belief systems.
ideologies, and these ideologies are not in a vacuum.
No. And they're
So,
certainly influenced by each other at the end of the day in one way or another, because none of these things exist by themselves and they probably clash regularly.
right,
I mean,
and
she said at the very beginning that uh, we get our beliefs from from our parents, from our culture, from people around us. Like
Yeah.
none of it comes without any sort of evidence or influence.
So which of these two beliefs, like on their face, let's take all of the like noise out of it, based on just what was said about it and what the people describing them have described it as, which one do you favor personally? Like if one had to be your like your totalitarian in whole worldview, which one would you favor out of these two?
I would probably more the pragmatist. I think evidence is very important and should be used uh, for decision making and but um, but I think that there are some things in life that you can't go and get all of the evidence for,
Yeah.
or even a substantial amount, and you have to make a decision. Now, then again, this is again talking about the difference between making a decision and having a belief in something.
Yeah.
Um, I make decisions all the time about like, hey, let's go get food at the Chipotle. I actually don't do Chipotle anymore. Won't get into the reasons why. But anyways,
Well, I
I
think
think
she
it's
did.
important to be able to make decisions even when you lack information, and then later to incorporate information and incorporate the evidence that you now have of how that decision went for you to make better decisions in the future. So I think I'm somewhere in the middle there. I don't think I'm one or the
Plus,
other.
plus these two ideologies remove hope. Hope isn't necessarily a belief. It's hope is the optimism that something could come about. It's not necessarily the belief that it will come about.
Okay, yeah, if that's how you're going with it, yeah, I can see that. I gotta lean towards pragmatism as a whole because it doesn't exclude evidence in any way except for in that one specific out of eight use case. Like eight potential outcomes, like game theory. You got eight outcomes, and one out of eight, you're in a crunch time emergency. And that's not even taking into account how often those kinds of cases come out. They may be scaled wildly. You know, number
I
seven
still
might be 95% of the time, and number one, which is the jam case, might be 0.001.
I'm with Teddy though that I believe she's and this is a belief. um
Oh dear.
I believe that she has conflated belief with action.
To an extent, yeah. Now,
So because I can act on something uh without evidence and without um let's say I act on something without evidence.
yeah,
That doesn't necessarily I believe it. It doesn't necessarily mean
that's
that I believe it.
that's potentially true. Yeah, you don't have to believe in something in its entirety. But would you say that you would believe when you act in a way that is the best option in front of you?
Mm,
Because people don't generally act outside their perceived best interest. You would probably need to persuade someone pretty hard to do that, and even then, it would probably be
I
in.
would say that it's possible for me to act on something with the belief that that is the best option that I have before me, but not necessarily in the belief of whatever I'm acting on, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
I can see it.
like, let's say it's 2016 and I have buffoon Donald Trump and liar Hillary Clinton in front of me as my two
My
options.
heroes, the Donald and Killary.
So if I'm forced to make a choice between the two, I
Mhm.
vote for Donald Trump. I don't believe in him being a good candidate, and I don't think he's the best thing for this country, but I think he is the best option of the two that I have in front of me.
Well, I think this would fall into category one, right? Because it's a live option going for the pragmatism. This I don't think would fall into the I guess it kind of would, but to a different extent. For the pragmatism side of it, it's a live option. You have two candidates to choose from, and
Mhm.
you have to choose between one of the two. Let's for hypothetical purposes say you're required to vote. This is a choice you had to make. You couldn't abstain.
Mhm.
So you would have two candidates. It Even though your decision has a minor influence on the total voting pool, it is
It
still
is
a major
momentous.
decision. Yes, it's a major decision as a whole because everyone is taking part in this big decision.
Yes.
And then it is forced because those are the only two, you can say third party, but they're the only two relevant candidates. So I think that and the only information you have at the time of that decision is what has been presented to you. There's stuff going on behind the scenes that you don't know, stuff going on in other countries. Remember Russia collusion
Mhm.
and how much stuff came out about that after the fact? We didn't,
Well, that
even though
came
much
out
was
after the
expected.
fact, so we can't really
Yeah.
put that into the
But
decision making
yes,
of.
but that's what I'm saying. There's other factors at play that we aren't even aware of. So you don't have in the first one, the evidentialism, you're supposed to make it with a massive preponderance of evidence. Whereas with this one, it's very much solely based in the if it's crunch time and you have to make a decision, you can't wait around for every little thing to come out. You have to just do what's right at the moment and lock in, you know? So I think pragmatism in the utilitarian side of things, and yes, the language that they used is a little floaty and wordy, and it's kind of, even the manifestation part of it, I can even kind of get behind a little bit because by thinking something is possible, that will lead you to taking an action, and that action can make it possible. So they're not even entirely wrong in that. Not
Me
everything
thinking
will be
that Hillary
possible.
Clinton isn't crooked doesn't change the fact that she's crooked.
No, I don't think that's the intent of what she was saying. What she, at least as my interpretation was, if you imagine you are hungry, like this has to be in the realm of reality, right? There is no reality in which Hillary Clinton is not crooked as a doornail. You know what I mean? Like you're gonna stub your toe on that bad boy coming right through. But in the realm of reality and in the achievable things, right? The example that she gave was the idea that the $2 in your pocket is actually 100. If you think, okay, I have a little money, but I want $100, but I only have two. Now you are of the idea that you could get to $100 with those $2, and you may use that in a way to benefit you in achieving that $100 down the road. It's
True,
not that it says this is
but
going to happen, but it just opens up possibilities because now you're thinking long term, and it's not a horrible way to look at it.
I mean, I would agree with you, but it's not necessarily that it can and will happen.
No, no, but it just opens up the possibility to you that it potentially could. Whereas opposed, if you weren't thinking about it at all, then it essentially just always won't because that possibility is never even in your mind to take the steps to make it happen. It might happen
That's
on
fair.
accident out of sheer dumb luck, but at least then you're taking actionable steps to achieve this goal. And the goal might be lofty and you might fail, but there's always the chance that it won't.
I mean, that is fair. I won't deny that part of my life.
Nope, he cut out.
We lost a Gleeman.
Oh no!
I just simply reached out to a. I went online and did a quiz on um, like first home buyers
Hmm.
and like what would be the best way to get a loan for a
Hmm.
house. Simply like entertaining the idea of getting a house, and I wanted to see if it was possible.
Yeah.
And within, I think it was within 24 hours, I had an agent, the loan, and the parameters of what house I wanted to get.
The
Yeah.
idea was the first pebble that started the avalanche.
Yes.
And I think that's
And
what this
yeah,
pragmatism kind of is. It's just once the idea, that seed is planted, it won't grow into a tree every time, but it has potential to grow. I could have the idea that I
right.
could be president.
I was acknowledging the fact that had I not even reached out, had I not put
Yeah.
forth the effort to make it happen, it would have never happened in the first
Yeah.
place.
The idea is the first step, and then it takes action after that.
I can get behind that a little bit, but you talk about the $2 into $100. Um, all I was thinking was, yeah, in the wrong mindset, though, someone takes their $2, goes to a
Mhm.
casino, and spends it to get
Yeah.
the $100 and they leave penniless or in
Or
debt.
as many people do when they say that they're manifesting something, they're not doing anything. They're just
No.
thinking and wishing and hoping and not taking any actual action to bring about what they're hoping to happen.
I'm sending good vibes into the universe.
Yeah, that's not going to do you anything.
For those
You
at home
need to take
watching,
the action
those people are
afterwards.
morons.
I did think of an example though where I think would be something where I'm needing to make a decision uh, without evidence, um,
Mhm.
or I guess without enough evidence.
A
But
lack
it's
of.
not. But it's not a belief. But it's not a belief. Um, so my wife and I we're going to be going to a potluck barbecue, whatever. We're bringing a
Lucky.
salad. Um,
Hmm.
she's making the salad and realizes we don't have any carrots. She asks me to go to the store and get carrots. I get to the store. I left my phone at home, so I can't contact her. And I see they have regular carrots and they have baby carrots. And I don't know which one she wants for the salad.
Okay.
Genuinely don't know. I don't really have a belief one way or another as to which one is the correct one, but time is of the essence and I need to make a decision. I can make a decision that I grab the regular carrots or I grab the baby carrots. Maybe it's kind of random, but I got to make a decision. But it's not because I believe strongly or that I believe that this one is what she wants rather than that one. So I don't know. I think this is an example of where she
Which did
that it fits under those three things that she had said. Like it's
Yes.
a living, uh, momentous,
momentous
and
and forced.
Well,
forced.
I don't know if baby carrots are momentous, and I don't know if. I guess you could argue that it's forced because you have to have them.
Well,
I
it's
don't think
Well,
it's
it's mo-
momentous. It's momentous if we take into uh, uh, if we take into account his wife's opinion of him and
true.
how this will
True.
affect her day.
yep, she's making the
Hobbit girl's
salad
known
right
penchant
before we
for
need to go,
violence.
so I'm strapped for time. I don't have the time to drive home, ask her which one she wants, drive back to the store, get it, and then drive back. Right? I don't have the option to go and seek
Yeah.
out more information, which I think is one of the biggest things about Momentous is that it's you you don't have the luxury of time to go and continue
Well, that's
doing
the biggest
research.
thing about being forced. Momentous is
No,
life changing.
Forced
Or like at least a big deal.
a opinion that essentially is you have to make a decision one way or another. The example that
Yeah.
she used for that was you can either believe in God or not believe in God. You kind of have to fall into one of those. You can't.
Yeah.
Mhm.
There isn't really another option. There isn't a way to be like yes and
I
no.
Fair,
believe in God, but only
fair.
on Tuesdays, kind of thing.
Right.
Right,
It's just not. It's not even how logic works most of the time.
So
right.
in this case, it's carrots or baby carrots, and
Yeah.
I don't know which. Um, so I'll make a decision, but again, this is her thing. There, I think is about making decisions, not
Yeah.
decisions about actions, not necessarily beliefs. I didn't have a belief that this is the one that she wanted. Um, I I grabbed one carrot or I grabbed the other.
She does split hairs a little bit in this video. To be like genuine and fair, there is a little
I
bit
don't
of
I don't know that
definition
I would call it
washing and
splitting
hair splitting.
hairs.
I wouldn't
I
say
think
it's
of
splitting
splitting
hairs either.
I think of splitting hairs as like getting really nitpicky about it. I think she's kind of muddying it a bit. I guess
That's a better way to say
the
it. Muddying.
the opposite of it, where she's
Right.
conflating the two.
She's definitely played around with definitions. I'm just going to come back to that. She's definitely played around with definitions. But
Rhino and her would get along great.
Yeah.
But the real question is, If I go
Uh,
into a convenience store and someone punches me in the face, do I have evidence to not send people to that convenience store?
Asking the real questions.
we come full circle. Full
Does
circle.
he have the evidence needed to justify his belief?
I mean, if we're basing it on this argumentation, I would say the anecdotal and circumstantial evidence of being punched in the face is enough for him to have the belief.
Is getting
Perfect.
punched in the face circumstantial? Like, I feel like that's not the kind of thing that happens on a whim or accident. Like, being punched in the face feels pretty intentional.
It is,
It-
but it's a circumstance that happened. It isn't necessarily objective proof that the
Ah, okay.
convenience
this is
store
going to
is
happen
dangerous
every
or
single time that you come to the store. Yeah.
right.
So, what's the percentage? Like, what's the fist to mouth ratio that makes it not circumstantial anymore? How many times do you have to get punched before it's not circumstantial? Before we have a
See,
nice
but
pattern?
now we're switching from circumstantial to statistical.
Oh
7.
well,
The
listen.
answer is 7.
The people don't like me on X. They don't like it when I bring up statistics. Let's not get started there.
But I'm just saying, circumstantial switches to statistical once you add numbers to it.
Well, I mean,
All right,
there's
we have been at it for 3.5 hours now.
this was a
Just
really
We
about.
fun.
have.
Okay, did we enjoy the video? What do we think of
Yes.
Olivia?
I did. Thank you, Olivia Sun, for this video.
I would say she's doing a fair enough job at presenting the ideologies, but she sort of made it into a binary when it really isn't. Like you don't necessarily have to believe one or the other. Um, so
Admittedly,
eh,
we're not getting through the entirety of her video, so perhaps at the end she says something about
she
that these aren't the
qualifies.
Final thoughts.
yeah, there could be
Yeah.
a qualifier somewhere in there that we missed, that these aren't the only two ways to
We
look
made
at
it a
it, but
good
it
way
That
certainly
to.
is very
seems
true.
to me that it's being portrayed as a binary.
Yeah. I think she's coming from a good place. I don't think that this is like meant to misinform. There's no like maliciousness behind it. She's
Oh, I,
playing a
I
little.
didn't say that.
Yeah.
No.
She's
Uh,
playing a little fast and loose with the definitions. That is fair. But if you're talking casually and you're not a wordologist like Gleeman, you're going to do that sometimes anyway. So I think it's just for someone who's not like in this space and doesn't know a ton about like psychology, linguists, history, that kind of thing, and they come to a video like this, I think they would find it really digestible.
fair. I'll say that. Fair.
You know,
That's as much as you're getting from me, okay?
that's a W
and
for
it
me.
and it did bring about a very lively and entertaining discussion, at least for me. So
Yeah, I think it was good. I think it was a fun conversation.
cool.
Right, Rhino, you want to do an outro?
Hey, everybody. We've been present company included. I am Rhino Rocks. This is TeddyGrizz and Gleeman. Guys, tell them where they can find you.
You can find me at the YouTube channel that you're currently on, youtube.com/at TeddyGrizz I'm TeddyGrizzVT on everything that's YouTube, Twitch, Rumble, and X. Come hang out, follow me. I live stream on Thursday evenings with my wife, Hobbygirl, and I also make videos talking about whatever I want to talk about, often reacting to things. It's a good time.
And I am Gleeman. You can find me on YouTube at youtube.com/a Gleeman. And you can also find me on X at a Gleeman with 2 N's. And on my YouTube, I do breakdowns. Also, every once in a while, I'll do a review for movies, as well as lore songs and other narrative-based content, because I love stories. So find me there.
Alrighty, and I am Rhino Rocks. You can find me at Rhino Rocks 88 on YouTube, and now at Rhino Rocks Yaps on YouTube as well, where I just talk about stuff like this.
Oh, exciting. I didn't realize you had a new channel coming out.
Just dropped the
Fantastic.
second channel a little bit ago. All right,
Yeah,
that's the end of the video.
he has 2 videos up already, guys.
Two
So go
whole
watch
ones
them.
for your enjoyment. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.
See you later.
Bye.